Inside the Magic, show number 333 for August 23rd. Is Tuesday, August 23rd, 2011, and this is show 333 of Inside the Magic. And as always, I'm your host, Ricky Briganti, and boy, do we have a big show for you this week. We're going to be talking all about the D23 Expo for 2011. It is a show packed with plenty of news, information, and excitement that you're not going to want to miss, so stick around for that. But before we get started, I do want to invite you to visit InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our D23 Expo coverage, including this podcast, many podcasts in the past, videos, photos, news, articles, and so much more. And moving forward, if you ever have any news, tips, or questions, you can contact me by writing to Ricky at InsideTheMagic.net, or you can call and leave a message at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. And this week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel Viva Italia. The agents at Magical Travel have personally experienced an Adventures by Disney vacation to Italy. Lucky them. Let Magical Travel plan your adventure of a lifetime, and you can receive a $250 Visa gift card. Call Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote, and be sure to mention Inside the Magic when you do, and you'll receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And by Audible, get a free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/InsideTheMagic. There you'll find over 85,000 titles to choose for your iPod or MP3 player, and you can pick an audio book for free. And by listeners like you. Thanks very much to Arthur Wade, and all of our monthly recurring donation subscribers. We thank you very much for your support of Inside the Magic. So now let's start off the show with our trip around the world. And as many people in the live chat room are pointing out, we are going to be talking about the D23 Expo on the 23rd. How perfect is that? I swear I planned that. Really, I did. It'd be better if it was show 323 as well. D23, 323, but it's not. It's 333. We'll just pretend those other shows didn't happen. No, maybe we won't. Anyway, so what we're going to do here, as I said, we are talking about the D23 Expo this week. Biggest news of the week certainly came out of the Expo, and that's actually not what we're going to be talking about here at the top of the show, because we've got a bit of pre- and post-Expo news to cover first. And then once we get through that, that's when I'll launch into the full report from throughout all of the days of the Expo. So in order to get to that, let's talk a bit about some other news that happened before and after the Expo, which is equally as exciting. Well, maybe not equally, but there's definitely some good stuff to share. So let's jump right into it. First, we're actually going to start out in Disneyland in California, where some expansion projects are going on. Officially have been announced recently by Disney for Main Street USA at Disneyland Park. There on Main Street, the new Jolly Holiday Bakery Cafe is indeed going to take over the current site of the Plaza Pavilion, which was most recently used as an annual passport processing center. There you're going to find a new menu, some outdoor seating, and that's going to be opening in January of 2012. Also on when that happens, the Blue Ribbon Bakery on Main Street is going to be closing, so that the Carnation Cafe next door is going to expand inward, and once again, for the first time in years and years, have indoor seating. That's going to reopen next summer of summer 2012. Then the Gibson Girl Ice Cream Parlor and the Candy Palace Display Kitchen are going to have some additional space, more room for purchasing and the like. That's going to close in January and then reopen in the spring of 2012. So some exciting stuff going on Main Street at Disneyland. And there's some more excitement happening at Disneyland as well, over at the Matterhorn bobsleds, where for the D23 Expo, it was actually closed. Anybody working their way over to Disneyland wasn't too thrilled about that, but it's for a good reason, because Imagineers are once again testing and possibly installing the new ride vehicles for the Matterhorn bobsleds. Not only do they feature an updated paint scheme, which looks pretty slick, I believe, but also, in addition to that, the old seating configuration generation is disappearing. The Matterhorn bobsleds, of course, have had sort of people sitting in other people's laps for a number of years now, for decades now. Well, they're changing that to individual seats, where you actually have your own seat back. Every rider will. There'll be 6 people per car. Very similar vehicles to Space Mountain out here in Walt Disney World. In addition, it appears that seat belts are going away in favor of lap bars. So a different riding experience coming to Matterhorn bobsleds. The attraction's reopening on September 2nd. It's not 100% clear as to whether or not those new vehicles are there permanently and will be there when it reopens on September 2nd, or if this is another test, because Disney has tested these vehicles a couple of times over the past few months. So we'll have to wait and see if this is the final version of this, or if it's just another test. Here's some really fun news that came out toward the end of the expo, or just after the expo. John Lasseter, of course, everybody watching or listening to this show knows who John Lasseter is, but if you don't, he's the head of all things animation at Disney, also up there in Imagineering, and he was from Pixar and all of that. Well, anyway, John Lasseter used to be a jungle skipper at Disneyland many years ago, and he has now launched a contest. JohnOfTheJungle.com is where you're going to find the contest that if you have a photo of John Lasseter as a jungle skipper years and years ago, in fact, from 1977, during his stint as a Jungle Cruise skipper, you could win a private jungle cruise with John Lasseter, as well as a trip to the grand opening of Cars Land at California Adventure next year. Pretty exciting there. It's got to be rare. I doubt too many people have a photo of Lasseter as a jungle skipper, but if you do, head to that website as quickly as possible and submit it, and you'll have a chance to win that pretty incredible prize. And no Berto rules in the chat room. Photoshop does not count. It's got to be a real photo. All right, moving on. Here's some good news for anybody looking to check the wait times whenever you want in theme parks. Disney announced just today that Mobile Magic, the application for Verizon telephones, is now free. It used to be subscription, then it was available for purchase, and now you can get it for free on Verizon Android phones. In addition, to be able to get that right now for free, Disney also announced that you'll be able to get it on the Verizon iPhone this fall. So coming soon to that iPhone. Now, they specifically said Verizon, so it's got to be the Verizon iPhone or Verizon Android device. And if you have that for free, you'll be able to check official wait times for the Disney parks in, I believe it's only in the United States, at Disneyland and Walt Disney World, as well as Fast Pass return times, GPS-enabled park maps, play games, make dining reservations, and all of that kind of thing. There are many other applications out there that do that sort of thing, unofficial applications, but this one's officially from Disney, so it's certainly worth grabbing. Recently, over at the World of Disney at Downtown Disney out here in Orlando in the Princess Room, there were some tests going on with some special kind of merchandise in which some young girls were invited to have some 3D photos taken of their faces in order to create a personalized princess figurine. It is a test, and there's no particular price set, though those who were involved in the test, according to the Orlando Sentinel, figured it would be about $100 if that actually happens. So it's possible that in the future you'll be able to have a customized princess doll with your own face on it, at least if you're a little girl. Of course, it's probably little girls who are going to want that. All right, sticking with the news out here in Orlando, recently, just before the D23 Expo, Disney revealed a first look inside all 4 of the different styles of rooms that are coming to the new Art of Animation resort that's opening next year out here at Walt Disney World. There's 4 family suite themes, and they all look pretty good for being a value-level resort. They include Finding Nemo. There are Cars rooms, there's the Little Mermaid, and then there's the Lion King. And you can see the photos of what Disney released over at InsideTheMagic.net to take a glimpse inside Art of Animation. Now, I believe it was last week on the show I had reported that the president of Disney Vacation Club, or rather vice president of Disney Vacation Club, Jim Lewis, had been fired along with a couple of other executives for some issues regarding planning of Aulani, the Disney resort that's opening in just a week, actually less than a week, 6 days out in Hawaii. Well, recently, Disney Vacation Club named a new senior vice president. It is Claire Bilby. She started in marketing in Walt Disney World in 1988, has been involved in marketing more or less ever since. She now answers to Carl Holtz, who's the president of New Vacation Operations and Disney Cruise Line. And speaking of Vacation Club, certainly not happy times with the mix-up of the shake-up of the executives there. Timeshare sales for Aulani have been suspended. It opens on August 29th, just 6 days from now, and you can't actually purchase into it at the moment. They're Disney accepting deposit reservations in the interim, but you can't even really give Disney your money and say, I want to buy this. Aulani's going to have 460 Vacation Club timeshares and 359 conventional hotel rooms, so it's unclear at this point as to exactly the future of Aulani. It's certainly going to open, and I'm sure it'll do very well eventually, but right now there's things that are not so happy going on there. And in case you're wondering, I'm not going to be there in 6 days when it does open. There's a remote possibility that I'll be there, hopeful possibility, I guess I should say, in about a month when it, has maybe worked out the kinks or so. But no guarantees there. We'll just have to wait and see. I'm sure I'll get there eventually. But in the meantime, I've got some fun Aulani-related content from actually a recent trip to Disneyland where I spoke with Joe Rohde and a couple of others about the project. So I'll be sharing that probably on next week's show. All right, let's turn away from Disney here on a very Disney-filled episode of this show just for a brief moment because in my ongoing coverage of all things Halloween in Central Florida, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Busch Gardens Tampa Bay this weekend, amidst all of the D23 Expo excitement, updated their website for Howl-O-Scream with the full details of their event, all the haunted houses and scare zones and shows and all of that. Three new haunted houses this year, Nevermore, Edgar Allan Poe themed one, Ultimate Gamble, Vampire Casino, that sounds pretty self-explanatory, and Zombie Mortuary, which, again, is pretty self-explanatory. Returning this year are Nightshade Toys, Death Row Vengeance, and Deconstruction, as well as the Alone House, which unfortunately has risen in price to $40. It's a really amazing experience, but I don't know about $40. We'll have to wait and see how much they've changed it or updated it this time around. Also, there's not more than one scare zone. There's only one scare zone this year, and it's a big one. It's basically saying the scare is everywhere, according to Busch Gardens, so there's going to be no safe zone throughout the park, which sounds great to me. In addition, the popular Fiends show is returning, and the Midnight Hour is going to debut a new show that sounds pretty similar to Blood Relations last year. So there it is. That's Howl-O-Scream 2011. All right, online over at Disney.com, they have a special Star Tours section, and they've added to it this week. If you're a fan of Star Wars and Star Tours, you can now download some exclusive Star Tours printables on that site, including a Star Tours poster, which they say you can hang inside your Starspeeder 1000. Not really sure what that means. And then there's also Vinylmation Star Wars iron-ons that you can print as well. In the world of music and movies, the Muppet Show theme music video came out today from OK Go, and featuring the Muppets. It's available on YouTube, of course, and if you're a Muppets fan, you will definitely enjoy that video. And here's something interesting that was actually news a couple of days ago, but amidst all the Expo excitement, it wasn't mentioned there, surprisingly, and at least not that I heard, and I just missed it entirely until today. The new sort of sequel to Tangled, it's actually an animated short that's going to be coming to the Disney Channel, has a name, and apparently it's called Tangled Ever After, which a lot of people are comparing to Shrek. That aside, there's a poster for it, which just basically shows all the characters from Tangled kind of staring at you, and that'll be on Disney Channel coming in November, sometime in November. But here's a project that I am most definitely excited about. It is the new Haunted Mansion movie that we really haven't heard anything about since it was first revealed or unveiled or talked about or anything at San Diego Comic-Con 2 years ago. It's 2010. Well, I guess that's technically last year. 2 Comic-Cons ago, Guillermo del Toro was there to talk about the new Haunted Mansion movie that he was working on, and then we heard nothing afterwards. Well, finally, recently, del Toro talked to MTV about it. He said said there's a second draft of the screenplay in the works. There's storyboards and artwork and maquettes. They've been working with Imagineering, and as he put it, quote, not only that we are not only faithful to the mansion and the ride, but that we have the ride in the future reflect into the movie and the movie into the ride, end quote. So that's interesting that he's thinking about taking whatever he comes up with for this new Haunted Mansion movie, working the ride into the movie, and then also working the movie into the ride, which if it was the previous Haunted Mansion movie, I would be not happy about that. I certainly wouldn't want to see Jennifer Tilly and Eddie Murphy in it, but this new one sounds great. Del Toro said he's going to be focusing on the Hatbox Ghost as a major character in the film, and I have a feeling that is what he is hinting at, that if it does well, perhaps this will be the reason for the Hatbox Ghost to finally return to the Haunted Mansion. As a footnote, it was indeed, I got confirmation from somebody this week that Guillermo del Toro is indeed the guy who I lost the Hatbox Ghost to in the 2009 D23 Expo auction. It is in his possession, so I don't feel so bad knowing that I didn't win the Hatbox Ghost, but Guillermo del Toro did. He wasn't there in person, of course, but he ended up getting it. Anyway, Del Toro also said he's working side by side, well, not side by side, but with Jon Favreau in order to connect the Haunted Mansion movie, Del Toro's new Haunted Mansion movie, with the Magic Kingdom movie that Favreau is working on, sort of in the same way that Marvel has all of its Marvel Studios movies connecting between Thor and Captain America and all of that. They're now working to make sure that they exist in the same sort of universe. So that should be a lot of fun, as long as both of those guys do them right, and they're both very talented, and I think they will. Speaking of other movies, I saw, before leaving for the D23 Expo, I had a chance to see Fright Night in 3D, which came out just a few days ago. This is the new Fright Night. I would hesitate to call it a remake of the old one, but it is sort of a retelling of the story. The only reason it's mentioned here is because Disney actually distributes this film. It's a DreamWorks picture distributed by Disney, and I reviewed it over at InsideTheMagic.net. So if you want my thoughts on Fright Night, head on over to the website. Sticking with the world of movies, but we're talking movies at home now, where Disney recently announced the home release date of Cars 2. That'll be hitting home on November 1st on Blu-ray, Blu-ray 3D, DVD, and movie download. Apparently the release is going to have an interactive world tour map, along with many other bonus features, of course. In addition, some other release dates. Actually, today is the release date for Bambi 2 Special Edition, Phineas and Ferb the Movie Across the Second Dimension, Brothers and Sisters, the complete fifth and final season, as well as Off the Map, the complete series, which I'm not even sure what that is. But I received it in a press release, and apparently it's Disney-related, so there it is. Other release date news that came out very recently is something that a lot of people are looking forward to, and that I just recently at the Expo had a chance to play, and it is Connect Disneyland Adventures from Microsoft. It's going to be coming out November 15th. And it features a chance to walk around Disneyland, the park, virtually via their Kinect system with no controller, just kind of waving your arms and legs and all that kind of thing. And also, in addition to walking around, you'll be able to sort of play these mini games based on attractions. There will be 20 attractions in total, though Microsoft is only revealing 6 of them so far. I'm going to talk a lot more about Connect Disneyland Adventures in an upcoming show, because I had a chance to demo it for quite a while at the Expo. So you're just going to have to stay tuned for all of that. And this is the part where I normally say that's it for news this week, but of course it's not even nearly close to news, but close to being all for news, because we've got lots coming out of the D23 Expo. That was all the non-Expo news from around the world this week. And before we jump into the Expo news, because I'm going to be talking for so long, this is going to be my only opportunity to put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. If you've got, let's say a convention, like maybe the D23 Expo, and you're looking to promote something like I was with some great Inside the Magic lanyards during the D23 Expo, then you're going to want to head on over to lanyardlab.com. And any of you who are watching our video version of this show, you can see the wonderful Inside the Magic lanyards that I made, of course, Lanyard Lab made for the D23 Expo, and that I was handing out to anybody who wanted one. And you can design something like that over at lanyardlab.com. Just submit your details via our quote request form, and we'll send you a proof showing you what your lanyards will look like, along with pricing, and then you can place your order online. It is simple as that. Again, lanyardlab.com. And now it is time to talk all about the 2011 D23 Expo. It's where do I begin? It was such an exciting event, such a wonderfully entertaining and fun event. It had some ups and downs throughout the weekend, and we'll certainly talk about all of those. But what I really want to do here this week is just run through my experiences at the D23 Expo for this year. There's a lot of news that came out of it, a lot of presentations, a lot that I will be sharing over the next couple of weeks here on the show. Some complete audio of presentations, some interviews, and a lot of special events like that, or special happenings throughout the expo. But this week, it's really just me taking you on a trip with me to the Anaheim Convention Center, talking our way through it, and then anybody who's watching on the video version, you're going to see photos along the way and even a bit of video as we work our way through all of the days of the 2011 D23 Expo and really just have some fun along the way. And of course, you know what? It doesn't even start at the Anaheim Convention Center. It really starts here in Orlando, because on Thursday, August 18th, that is when I headed out for the D23 Expo. It was beginning officially the next morning, August 29th, but so I was flying out the night before. I was taking Virgin America once again because it is a great way to fly between Los Angeles and Orlando, and I'm not getting paid to say that or anything. It really just is a nice airline, and I do recommend it. I know I did a review quite a while ago of the flight between the two, and I will happily take that airline whenever I fly between them. But anyway, that night was actually a media preview of the Disney Parks Pavilion, as well as the Walt Disney Archives exhibit at the D23 Expo, before everybody else had a chance to see it. Unfortunately, I was on an airplane at the time, so I personally wasn't able to be there for that media preview. However, I did send Josh Dawes of DawesBrothers.com. The two of them, Josh and Jeremiah, have helped us out on a number of occasions covering events out in California over the years, and so Josh happily drove down there to cover that preview. And while he was there, I was fired up the Wi-Fi on the plane, which is one of those great things about Virgin America. They not only have Wi-Fi, but also outlets, regular outlets you can plug your laptop in, so you can just work all the way through the flight. It feels like you're just at home or in an office or whatever. So I was chatting on our live blog that I had up and running throughout the D23 Expo, and meanwhile, Josh was there tweeting lots of live pictures. Now, since I wasn't there in person, I'm not going to talk about those exhibits just now. I'm going to talk about them when I actually get to experience them for myself in this whole kind of chronological walkthrough trip report sort of thing through the D23 Expo. So I'll leave that where it is. I landed, of course, at Los Angeles International Airport, LAX. We hopped Michelle was with me, and we hopped a super shuttle over to our hotel, which is the Annabella, right next door to the convention center on Catella, very close to Disneyland, kind of on the backside of Disney California Adventure. And, before I get any further, I should mention once again, anybody who is in the chat room, and there are quite a lot of you, please feel free to chime in with any questions that you have at any point. It looks like Michelle is actually in the chat room right now, so I'm sure she'll be happy to, looks like she's chatting along. And I of course, want to share some here on the show, because if you've got a question in the chat room, I'm sure all of you listening out there and if you're watching on YouTube later, you might have the same question as well. So please feel free to fire away with any questions at any time related to what I'm talking about. So, with that said, after a couple of mishaps at the hotel, with the room being kind of in a corner and not terribly great, and then some internet issues, we finally got all that worked out. And I had gotten an SD card full of photos and video from Josh to post all of that. So I ended up working for a couple of hours that night, posting all of the great details, all the excitement and amazing stuff from the Parks Pavilion and from the Walt Disney Treasures exhibit. Finally got to bed that night at about 3:30 in the morning or so, and I got up about 4.5 hours later. And began day one of the D23 Expo for 2011. That was, of course, Friday, August 19th is when the official start of the 2011 D23 Expo was. And upon walking from our hotel, the Annabella, over to the convention center, the first sign of the D23 Expo that we saw was a big, long line. The line to get into the expo each day wrapped quite a bit around the Anaheim Convention Center, which is not exactly small. It's a fairly large convention center, and the line just went out the door and wound back and forth. And I actually overheard as I was walking through the line or past the line, actually, one of the Disney employees who was working there, I overheard him mention something about more than 2,000 people being in line outside. So it's something that everybody had to deal with in order to get into the expo first thing in the morning. And of course, everybody wanted to get in as quickly as possible to get into another line in order to make sure they got into the presentations in the morning. This was an ongoing issue throughout the expo. Certainly a lot of people complaining about a lot of lines, but it was to be expected. I know a couple of weeks ago when I had my D23 Expo planning podcast, one of the things I said was, get ready for lines. Prioritize and be prepared to stand possibly hours in line to get into things, and this was one of those cases. The line seemed to be moving continuously once the doors opened. There were actually two lines, one for D23 members who got in at 9 a.m. and one for non-members who got in at 10 a.m. And because of that, some people waited longer than others, but once the doors opened, then it moved quickly because everybody had their badges. You could have gotten them the day before, and all they had to do was scan it real quick on your way in. So it was a continuously moving line, but it was very, very long. So, and then, like I said, you move from one line to the next. So not necessarily the most pleasant experience, but that's what you got to do if you want to see some of these rare sights, and there were certainly some amazing sights to see that morning. But once you got inside, it was distinctly Disney. As soon as you entered into the Anaheim Convention Center, you were greeted by large banners welcoming you in to the D23 Expo 2011. Lots of pictures of Disney characters to be found. And as you moved your way through, you got handed a guidebook for the expo, and headed on into the show floor. Now, I can't really speak too much about how obnoxious the lines were. Fortunately, I had a press pass for the D23 Expo, and so as such, I was able to just kind of walk right by everybody who was in line outside, and I didn't get to skip all the lines, but I got to skip that line, and that was a good thing, because basically the point of the press pass is for me to be able to do exactly what I am doing right now. I'm bringing the coverage of the expo to you, and in order to do that, well, I have to make sure that I have enough time to see everything. So, yeah. Of course, not everybody has a press pass. The other option that is available for those which is very similar, actually better than what I had. There were two options: the Sorcerer tickets and the Premier tickets, and both of those were, well, they were pricey. I believe the Sorcerer tickets were about $1,000, but and I don't remember how much the other ones were, and they were limited, of course. But those who had them were very, very happy to have them. They sold out very quickly months ago, and throughout the entire expo, I saw a lot of happy sorcerers who got to skip every line. They had reserved sections for them at all the presentations, and for anybody who really, really doesn't like to stand in line, if you've got the income to spare, then you got to do it a little bit more conveniently than everybody else. So moving on, entering into the convention center, of course, there were lots of things on the show floor, but I skipped all of that first thing in the morning because, it takes a very long time to walk around the show floor. Actually, it probably takes you about 20 to 30 minutes just to walk around the show floor, not even stopping and looking at anything. Of course, much longer if you actually look at things. And I didn't have time for that because I actually didn't have a chance to walk around the show floor too much until Sunday because I was so busy with the very entertaining presentation. So since we're going chronologically through this trip report here, we are going to start with the the D23 Arena, which is the biggest area that they had presentations in. That's where all of the biggest panels and the biggest showstoppers were held, and that was where I was headed first that morning. Actually, first, what I wanted to know was where do I get in for media access so I can set up a camera and all of that kind of thing. After some miscommunication, I finally entered into the arena and secured a great spot on the floor. It was kind of deja vu because I was in exactly the same place that I was back in 2009. And I was just getting over being sick. In fact, I'm still kind of getting over being sick, and I was on lack of sleep. But despite all of that, I was quite happy to be back at the D23 Expo, back in the same spot that I had a whole lot of fun back in 2009. And kind of all of that went away a bit as I was standing there waiting for the promise of more entertainment to be found and more of these ceremonies. And there definitely was a lot of fun. The first event to happen at the D23 Expo was the Disney Legends ceremony. That was what kicked it off more or less back in 2009. That's what started it all off this time around. Once again, as soon as I arrived and saw the crowds entering into the seats in front of me, I noticed a few of the past legends. I saw Dave Smith and Tony Anselmo sit down a couple of rows in front of where I was. And after everybody had a chance to get seated, then it was time to begin. And once we began, it became very clear that this expo was going to be quite different than the 2009 Disney Expo, D23 Expo, because, instead of it starting all off with CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, coming out and talking to everybody, he appeared on video, which was a bit of a surprise to everybody who was there. He was not present, and it was kind of a strange introduction, to be honest. He came on the video screen and said, "Welcome to the D23 Expo. I'm not here because I'm on vacation." Apparently there had been a long planned, as he put it, family vacation, and he just wasn't there. It's a little strange. Of course, everybody's known that the D23 Expo was going to be this weekend, these dates, for quite a while now. I don't know why he would have planned a vacation during that, but there it is. So he wasn't there. So instead, he then introduced Tom Staggs, chairman of Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, to come out and give the official introduction to the D23 Expo this year. And Staggs ended up being quite a personable guy. We saw him a couple of times throughout the Expo experience, but he's not Bob Iger. He's not the head of the Disney company, and it would have been nice to see the CEO of the Disney company there at the Expo, the ultimate gathering of Disney fans, as they put it. A little strange, but anyway. Moving forward from that, this is, of course, everybody was there for the Disney Legends ceremony, and one of the first things Tom Staggs did was point out some of the legends who were in the audience, and just a couple of rows in front of me was Bob Gurr, who was kind of hamming it up when Staggs had everybody introduce or had all the legends stand up and just kind of take a bow and everything. So Bob Gurr stood up a few rows in front of me, and I noticed over to the right was Richard Sherman was there as well, and then there were a number of others also. So a lot of really amazing people who were in the audience. It took a bit of a sadder note at that point, because before getting started, it was time for Disney Legends in Memoriam, in which they ran through all of the legends who recently passed away, and it was quite the incredible amount. I hadn't realized just how many Disney legends had recently passed away, from Rue McClanahan, who was just made a legend back in 2009 at the D23 Expo. She wasn't there herself, but unfortunately she did pass away recently. Art Linkletter, and they showed pictures, and of course everybody applauded for these legends as they went by. Wally Bogue, who there was a tribute to, along with Betty Taylor, actually the night before on the 18th for the Sorcerers, and I think the premieres. There was a tribute to them over in Frontierland at Disneyland. Bill Justice from Animation and Imagineering, Bill Martin from Imagineering, Harrison Buzz Price from Imagineering, a lot of a name that certainly fans of Imagineering are familiar with. Fess Parker from film and television. Of course, you know who Fess Parker was. Eileen Woods, who was voice actress, of course. Paul Kenworthy from film. Richard Todd from film, and finally Roy E. Disney, who from everything. So it was nice to see them all get a tribute before the Amazing Legends ceremony started. And after that, it was indeed time for that Legends ceremony to get started. And the host, once again this year for 2011, was none other than Tom Bergeron, who's always a funny guy. This time it seemed like he was reading off the teleprompter a little bit more than usual, more than 2009 possibly, but still very funny. And he was there to introduce all of the other Disney legends, and they started out with just right off the bat with some of the best entertainment that would come throughout the entire 2011 D23 Expo. They kicked it off with the Disney princesses who were being given Disney Legends awards this year, and it all started with the youngest Disney legend ever, and that is Annika Noni Rose, of course, the voice of Princess Tiana from The Princess and the Frog. And so she gave a nice speech, and the speeches of these princesses, they all had their own unique take on what it meant to them to become a Disney legend. In her case, she was a bit surprised, as were many, having only voiced Tiana just a couple of years ago. But, beforehand, Tom Bergeron had given her a really nice introduction that said everything that she has done for the Walt Disney Company in addition to just being the voice. And while I'm not sure it was necessarily all deserving of being a Disney legend already, she certainly is an important part in Disney history. She's, the first African-American princess, of course. She's the youngest Disney legend now, and she certainly seems like a very, very nice person with a lot of great personalities, or not personalities, but whatever the word is, traits around her. So she accepted her award alongside Prince Naveen in costume. And after that, it was time to call up the next Disney princess to accept a Disney Legend Award, and that was Linda Larkin, who was the speaking voice of Jasmine in Aladdin. And each of these Disney princesses' voices came up to stage alongside the characters that they were with in the film. So, of course, Linda Larkin was up on stage next to Aladdin. And then along the same subject, next was Lea Salonga, who was not only the singing voice of Jasmine, but also the singing voice of Mulan. And she accepted alongside Aladdin as well. Following her was Paige O'Hara, who, of course, voiced Belle in Beauty and the Beast, and the Beast came out to welcome her to the stage and give her award, and then she, after a speech, an emotional speech, walked off. She was very excited to receive the award. It almost got more emotional as it went on, and I'm sure they put them in this order for that reason, culminating, of course, with everybody's favorite Jodie Benson, who was Ariel in The Little Mermaid, and she was just beyond emotional during her speech. She was so incredibly excited and overwhelmed to be finally getting this Disney Legend Award. She's been working with the Walt Disney Company, not only beginning with Ariel back in late 80s, but also has done so many other roles and worked so much with Disney over the years that she was just overjoyed and thrilled to be accepting the award. In fact, while she was up on stage giving her speech, she even showed her Disney cast member ID. Because she was so honored to be a Disney employee, to be a Disney cast member, and to be part of the Disney family, and she wanted to make it very well known that she just was so proud to be part of Disney. So of course she accepted the award next to Prince Eric, and she was wearing a very sparkly Ariel type dress. And then she left the stage, and everybody thought, "Wow, that was nice. We got to see all of these Disney princess voices." But it most certainly didn't end there, because after that, Tom Bergeron left the stage, and coming out on stage was once again Linda Larkin, who again was the speaking voice for Jasmine. And as a speaking voice, she spoke, and she introduced the other four ladies back to the stage one by one to each sing some incredible familiar songs from their films, beginning with Paige O'Hara, who sang a medley of Beauty and the Beast songs. Of course, Belle doesn't have a lot of independent songs in that film, so she went ahead and sang a number of songs from Beauty and the Beast. After her was Leah Salonga, who sang Reflection from Mulan. Then Anika Noni Rose came out and sang Almost There from The Princess and the Frog, which was both Reflection and Almost There were amazing. I had never heard either of them. I don't think I've ever actually heard a live version of either of those songs before from these two artists, and they just sounded incredible. And then it was capped off by Jodie Benson singing Part of Your World, which is always a treat. This is now the third time I've actually seen, in the last year and a half or so, that I've seen Jodie Benson in person sing Part of Your World, and each time it is just such an incredible performance. And at the end of these four songs, of course, they all got just standing ovations. Everybody in the audience was completely thrilled, and it still wasn't quite over yet because Jodie Benson was still out there on stage, and then coming and joining out her on stage were the other three Disney princesses, all four of them wiping tears from their eyes, joined together to sing A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes, all together on stage, a once-in-a-lifetime gathering of Disney talents singing together in one location, just a completely unforgettable experience there. And yes, of course, I recorded it. The videos are available already over at InsideTheMagic.net, as well as on our YouTube channel. I'll actually be sharing a complete audio of this whole Legends presentation at some point on this show. Not only these performances, but the other things I'm about to talk about. But you've got to just rush out and see these performances if you haven't watched them already. Head over to the website. Thousands and thousands have watched the videos already, and it was just such... Not only was it an amazing performance, but it was almost the defining moment of the entire weekend. It was one of the best and most exciting events, and it was the very first thing that you saw throughout the 2011 D23 Expo. It was something that was difficult for everything else to live up to, that's for sure. And later in this Legend ceremony, something else happened that was pretty darn entertaining, but this was just phenomenal. It was quite the sight. So tough to top that, but the Legend ceremony certainly moved on. And next up was Ray Watson. He and just like the princesses, everybody had a character with them when it was time to accept their awards. So Ray Watson was on stage accepting with Princess Aurora, and then next up was honoring Bo Boyd. And it looks, let's see, Bo Boyd was actually not there. Bo Boyd was honored by his daughters, and Snow White was there to accept with her. Anybody listening, wondering why I'm pausing there? We had a little bit of a technical mix-up there on the live feed, but hopefully we're getting that sorted out right now. For everybody watching out there, hopefully you're able to still see me. But anyway, moving on with the Disney Legends ceremony here. Next up after Bo Boyd was Guy Williams' family, and Guy Williams, of course, was Zorro years ago, and his family, I believe it was his son, had come out with Zorro's sword, which was pretty nice. And then moving on from there were Jack and Benita Rather's son and daughter, and that was a nice moment as well. These were all, certainly important figures in Disney history. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been honored as Disney Legends. But at the same time, it's kind of those figures that not everybody in the audience knew quite as well as the Disney princesses, and certainly not as well as who was to come, because coming up after Jack and Benita Rather's son and daughter was none other than somebody who everybody knows, and it was Regis Philbin, and he made some funny remarks alongside Tom Bergeron, had a few stories to tell, a little bit confusing of a story as well, something about his family not being able to get into Disneyland or something like that. But anyway, he accepted his award after making some jokes. He was actually introduced on stage by Kelly Ripa, his co-host, up until recently when he announced he was leaving that show. I don't know if the show has ended or not, but anyway, he was funny as he always is. And then it all culminated with a tribute to now Disney legend Jim Henson. Of course, everybody knows who Jim Henson is. He's the creator of the Muppets and many wonderful things over the years. And to honor Jim Henson, his daughter Lisa Henson was there. She is the CEO of the Jim Henson Company currently, and she actually came out to share a few thoughts and then introduce what became another wonderful performance. And that was she introduced her brother Brian Henson, who also, of course, works for the Henson Company, and him, alongside Leslie Carrera Rudolph, performed on stage a live puppeteering of Jim and Jane Henson's old routine called I've Grown Accustomed to Your Face. It was a live puppeteering routine on stage that just brought everybody who was watching there in the audience into the kind of this childlike wonder. It was mesmerizing and hilarious. There was this big black box that was wheeled out on stage, and Brian Henson and Leslie Carrera Rudolph were standing inside of it with the Muppets on top. And they were, you could see both the couple of Muppets that were there on the top, the puppets, as well as the puppeteers underneath. And you could see how it was all working together. And it was just a really cute skit that it was all music based, so I wouldn't be able to share the audio on this show. You just have to go watch the video over at InsideTheMagic.net. I did, of course, watch this as well, or video this as well. And you can see that there as well as on YouTube. And it was just such a touching moment to honor Jim Henson with this old routine of theirs. Absolutely hilarious and really was wonderful to see. And after that, Brian Henson took the stage by himself and gave some funny stories about Jim Henson. And then he and his sister proceeded, along with Sweetums, to accept the award. But that wasn't all. After they left the stage, suddenly you saw the curtains opened, and out came a set with some plants and a piano. And sitting at that piano were Ralph the dog, and on top of the piano was Kermit the Frog with a banjo in hand, and the pair of them proceeded to sing Rainbow Connection. You know, how do you top Disney princesses singing their classic songs? Well, you bring out Kermit the Frog, and you have him sing Rainbow Connection. It was just one of those unforgettable moments. It floored the audience, this live performance, and you could tell it was not any kind of pre-recorded thing. It was something that was being performed live right there. There was kind of a little minor flub in the middle, which Ralph joked about and then moved on. And it just amazing performance. You definitely need to head on over to our website or on YouTube and check out the video of this and everything else that I just mentioned. I'm going to share that along with the rest of the ceremony here on the show pretty soon, but we have a lot more to get to this week about the D23 Expo. We're only in the first ceremony here. So it just an absolute incredible way to start the D23 Expo. It was just filled with emotion and surprises and just incredible. Probably, it very well may have been the best thing in the entire weekend, which may not be what you want to see first thing, but it was just a wonderful way to start everything off. So that was the Disney Legends ceremony. Moving on from there, leaving out of the arena just off to the side, Michelle wanted to go get some cupcakes, but she didn't want to buy them. Actually, she had seen that they were handing out free cupcakes over in one area of the show floor. They did this a few times. It may have been multiple times a day. It might have only been once a day, but it was at the Disney Party planning area, and the cupcakes were, they weren't anything special, but they were free, and they were cupcakes, and we hadn't eaten anything yet, so they were welcome. I was hungry, and I ate a cupcake, and that held me over until dinner. So, free cupcakes. Anyway, many attendees used this time just after the Disney Legends ceremony to explore the floor or to line up for the next presentation. I actually ended up going back to the hotel to begin working a bit on the Legends video. While over there, I had started dumping the video off from the video camera onto the computer. And while we were working on that, Michelle was grabbing some food from the restaurant there at the Annabella, which was taking forever. And then we had to get back as quickly as possible in order to make it to the next big presentation of the day, which was going to be the Disney Parks and Resorts presentation, which, of course, is something that we didn't want to miss. So as soon as the food was ready, we We headed out, grabbed the food, walked back to the arena, got in line for that, and tried to eat the food while we were in line, but it was actually really terrible. I took like 3 or 4 bites, and we just ended up kind of throwing it away, which was not great. So really hadn't eaten much except for a couple of bites and a cupcake, but that's all right because there was some excitement to be had. Headed on back into the arena once again in a similar spot as earlier, this time with a tripod instead of just a monopod, and set up for what was to come. Now, of course, back in 2009 at the Disney Parks and Resorts presentation was when Disney not only went over a lot of exciting projects that we already knew about, but it was when they officially announced the Fantasyland expansion, as well as Star Tours 2, which Fantasyland expansion, of course, is now well into construction, and Star Tours is already open. So expectations for this presentation were very, very high. Now, while waiting in the arena for presentations to start, while everybody was filling in, things were up on the screen to keep everybody sort of entertained. They would have a message that says, stand up and shout if you're a D23 member, and inevitably people would do that, and everybody thought something exciting was happening, but really it was just the thing up on screen. They had, in addition to that, some trivia that you could play along with up on the screen with a picture of Ludwig von Drake, giving you the trivia questions, and I never really paid attention to any of it because I was too busy, with equipment and setting up and all of that. But anyway, finally, the Disney Parks and Resorts presentation began, and this is where, it really began with a bang. Everybody was excited, as I said. The D23 orchestra, live orchestra there on stage, began playing. Lots of colored lights were flashing, smoke, foggy kind of stuff was filling the stage, and out from the middle came Mickey Mouse on drums playing along with the orchestra. It was a nice way to start the exciting way to start the presentation. Tom Staggs, of course, chairman of Parks and Resorts, came out after that, and Mickey got up off the drum set and walked over, and it was Talking Mickey Mouse. So Staggs and Mickey had a short conversation back and forth, and then Mickey left the stage to leave Staggs to host the rest of the presentation. Now, in the past, Tom Staggs has been a bit of a stiff kind of guy. He's not necessarily come off as the most personable guy, and I think Disney was really, it was clear that Disney was really trying to fix that this time, because Staggs' pre-written routine for this presentation was absolutely filled with jokes and with comedy, and it worked at the beginning. It started off quite funny, and then it got kind of less funny as the hour went on. At the beginning, they showed this absolutely hilarious video of Tom Staggs kind of doing quote-unquote ordinary jobs, cast member jobs around Disney parks. He was, on the helm of a Disney cruise line. He was picking up after an elephant. He was, handing out balloons. He was singing in the Dapper Dans and things like that. It's something that you just have to see the video. Of course, I've posted it over on our YouTube channel. Definitely go check that out. It actually is. If you know who Tom Staggs is, and you know who Jay Rizzullo was, well, he still is, but he was the former Parks and Resorts chairman, then you will really get a kick out of this video. It was actually very, very funny. But after the comedy bit there, it was time to move on with some actual presenting of topics at the presentation. And first up was from Walt Disney Imagineering, Bruce Vaughn. And he was there to talk about New Fantasyland. And not only was he there to talk about Fantasyland and give an update, but he was going to be talking specifically about the Seven Dwarves coaster that we didn't know all that much about. I mean, we knew the basic concept and had seen a couple of drawings, but a lot more was revealed during this presentation, including a look at what a couple of concepts for what these rocking back and forth ride vehicles were going to look like, making sure that everybody knew that this project was indeed happening and that everybody was very excited about it. They showed a bit of test footage where on the back of a pickup truck at Imagineering, they actually had strapped this rocking back and forth ride vehicle, and a couple of people were in it, making sure that it was a fun sensation, and apparently it is, because it's coming to the Magic Kingdom. And then they finished up with a virtual ride-through of most of the attraction, set to the music of Hi-Ho, and showing some dwarves, moving around, and the vehicles moving back and forth, and it looks like it is going to be a fun ride. So a great way to start off the presenting part of the presentation, if that's what I mean. And that video was released online as well, so you can see, get an idea of what this attraction is going to be like. It's sort of a mid-ish sort of thrill ride. It's, they've described it as more thrilling than Barnstormer, but less thrilling than Thunder Mountain, for those of you who are asking about the thrill level in the chat room. It's not quite up to the level of Thunder Mountain, but it's, be kind of this interesting mixture of roller coaster and dark ride, and it seems like it's going to be a really nice addition to Fantasyland. It certainly got a lot of applause from the audience, and everybody was ready to see what's coming up next. And so next up, they moved on to the topic of Aulani out in Hawaii, and they brought out what was a kind of a familiar performance, especially for me. They brought out the exact same Hawaiian dancers and singers that were there at the What's Next presentation for the media back in June. And Staggs admitted that right afterwards. He said that they had them at the park at Disneyland back in June, but they just were so good that they wanted to see him again. So we saw him again. It wasn't all that bad. I mean, it was a good performance, but to repeat something so soon was a little bit odd. Granted that most people in the audience had not seen it unless they caught the video on YouTube. So anyway, Joe Rohde was not there to talk about Aulani because he is at Aulani putting the finishing touches on it, but he did have a kind of an update video that they showed of Rohde talking really fast and running around Aulani and just showing it off, at which point they came back to Tom Staggs on stage, and he had on his ear an earring that was very similar to that famous earring that Joe Rohde always wears as well, which was a funny moment if you hadn't already seen that, but he made that joke once before. Also, I can't remember. It must have also been at the media presentation. So, most people in the audience probably hadn't seen it already, but I had. So, anyway, moving on from there, away from Aulani, next up on the stage was Imagineer Bob Weiss to talk about a pair of topics. And the first was Shanghai Disneyland, which Disney is still not saying all that much about. Shanghai is very much a secret. It's very much still in blue sky. And there's a lot still in development, so they can't really say exactly what's going into the park. But what they are able to say, or what they were able to show, was a much better look at Storybook Castle, which is going to be the biggest castle to be in any Disney theme park anywhere. They showed a fly around of the castle and kind of looked inside, showing that it's going to have multiple levels in this grand sweeping spiraling staircase. There's going to be a Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique inside, along with shops and restaurants and meet and greets. And then they did indeed reveal something brand new that we had never heard about Storybook Castle before. They said that it will contain a ride, which everybody in the audience was very excited about. It is going to be so big of a castle that it actually can have a ride inside the castle, which is a question that cast members get quite often in Florida. And they walk up to Cinderella Castle and say, "Ooh, where's the Cinderella ride?" Well, no, there's not one, but there is going to be a boat ride apparently inside Storybook Castle. They didn't elaborate as to exactly what the ride was going to be about, but they kind of showed concept art of what a transformation sort of finale scene was going to be. They also mentioned that the castle was not going to have a dungeon with a dragon because dragons are very much part of Chinese culture, and they couldn't, work on getting that whole thing right. They didn't want to have a big menacing dragon because that wouldn't work in Chinese culture. But anyway, there will apparently be a boat ride of some sort, or so they say right now. They also prefaced all of that by saying this is all still blue sky. And because of that, any of this could change. They might decide. They haven't actually started building any of this, so they could very well change any of this. But they seem pretty excited about it. So we'll just have to wait and see how that progresses. Next up, also from Bob Weiss, was just a brief mention of Buena Vista Street over at California Adventure. They showed a new fly-through of the new entranceway that is on the way to California Adventure, and there would be much more about that in an upcoming panel the next day, so they didn't elaborate on that too much. Next up on the stage during this Parks and Resorts presentation was somebody that we've seen quite a number of times over the last few years. That was Kathy Mangum, executive producer for Walt Disney Imagineering and one of the leads on the Cars Land project. And she didn't have a whole lot new to say. We've heard a whole lot about Cars Land over and over and over and over and over, because it's been a very long project, and there really isn't that much more to say. I mean, they've said what they're working on, they said what they're building, now they're just doing it. So there's not much else they can reveal other than showing some new glimpses inside Cars Land where you can't see it in person. So they showed a photograph of what Radiator Springs currently looks like, and it looks like it's coming together pretty well. It's still a lot of dirt. Of course, Radiator Springs is supposed to have a lot of dirt, but this is like construction dirt, not Disney Park dirt. But anyway, they're working on it. They also showed what the state of Luigi's Flying Tires is, which, of course, is inspired by the old flying saucers right at Disneyland years ago. They said they have the whole base installed, which is basically like one of those air hockey tables on a giant scale. And they've tested it. They said it's fun, and that ride testing in the park should begin, I think they said, in September. So pretty soon. So that was the update on Cars Land. Nothing, particularly new or unique there. We were, kind of winding down the presentation at that point, getting close to the hour mark, and who comes out next? None other than George Kalogridis, president of Disneyland Resort. And if the president of Disneyland Resort is coming out, everybody's kind of thinking, what's coming up next? It was, one of those moments where everybody thinks, ooh, here we go. Here comes the big moment that we've all been waiting for. Here comes the big announcement of something new. And you know what? I'm not going to share a whole lot of audio or video or any of that kind of thing from the expo this week on the show. But right now, I actually do want to share this with you because I want you to have that same moment that everybody had there at the expo while watching George Kalogridis and Tom Staggs on stage describe what exactly, I'll just let them take it.
One of the things that we've heard from our guests, and actually something that you and Meg Croft and I have been talking about, is that many of them want a deeper and more personal experience with the resort and with the attractions. So now we've tried to take that feedback seriously. So we're excited to announce that we're working on a series of special experiences that will enable our guests to interact with their favorite attractions and characters in a whole new way.
So imagine having dinner in a haunted mansion with some of our Imagineers. Or sitting down at a tea party with your two favorite princesses. How about being able to step back in time to experience a Disneyland attraction from yesteryear once again? Like being able to enjoy a planter sponge Tahitian in the Tahitian Terrace, or to be immersed in the pageantry and panorama of America the Beautiful in Circle Vision 360. So it just goes to show you that anything is possible at the Disneyland Resort.
So speaking of special experiences, you all know that Club 33 has a really, really long wait list. So long, in fact, that we stopped adding names a couple of years ago. So I sort of challenged George and his team to come up with some means of expanding our club offering here at the Disneyland Resort. Now, we're in the early stages, but it's going well, it looks good, and we look forward to sharing more information on that expansion with you in 2012. All right, that was a tease, wasn't it? Stay tuned.
Trust me, they'll keep me honest.
I believe you. With all that's going on at California Adventure, we're also pleased to announce that we're going to expand somewhat the boundaries of Fantasyland over at Disneyland with a brand new experience called Fantasy Fair. We're going to transform Carnation Plaza Gardens into a storybook village. It's a square where we'll invite guests of all ages to step into this fairy tale realm. So let's give you a few details, George.
So Imagineering is hard at work on the design elements of Fantasy Fair. So these renderings are actually early renderings, but they give you an idea of just how charming and how enchanting it's going to be. At the heart of Fantasy Fair is Tangled Tower. It's an iconic sculpture inspired by the film that serves as a central gathering point for all.
So Bruce and I talked a little bit earlier about how special our princess experiences are. So inside the Royal Princess Hall, a trio of Disney royalty will welcome guests and provide a truly personal visit. Not only will it be a beautiful place to capture photos, but it's also going to give families ample time to meet with their favorite princesses.
The Fantasy Fair stage will be an incredible new entertainment venue that will enable us to bring the stories and inspiring personalities of our fairy tale heroes and heroines to life, and to let our guests become part of the story too. Each morning, when the park opens, Princess Aurora will welcome her royal guests and invite everyone to gather for a very special celebration. At various times throughout the day, families can join the Royal Ribbon Festival with the Disney Princess and our royal court attendants for dancing and celebration.
Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but at night, Fantasy Fair Stage will still play host to the classic music and dance offerings our guests continue to love. So, for you swing dancers out there, don't worry.
Fantasy Fair will feature new food and merchandise offerings, all themed to enhance this new fairy tale experience. Because we know this is the heart of the Disneyland park, Fantasy Fair will bring our classic characters and stories to life in a new yet timeless way, and we can't wait. We're very excited.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So you heard it. You heard it exactly as it unfolded at the 2011 D23 Expo in that Parks and Resorts presentation, and I bet you're just as confused as everybody who was in the audience is. What was all that about a dine in the Haunted Mansion with an Imagineer, or revisit an attraction that's gone, or have a tea party with princesses, or what in the world were they talking about? Well, as Staggs put it, it was a tease. It's not anything they were ready to announce, but they wanted to almost pre-announce it, which is really bizarre. A lot of speculation as to what in the world any of that means. Nobody has a clue, and it was just one of those things where I guess they felt like they needed to add a little bit more to the presentation, since they didn't actually have much to announce other than Fantasy Fair, which you heard the reaction. Not a whole lot of excitement on that. In fact, as somebody just pointed out in the chat room, there was more applause about the swing dancing not going away than there was about the actual Fantasy Fair itself. So, yeah. There was no further comment on any of that. There actually was no press conference about any of this. In fact, the big difference between this D23 Expo and the one in 2009, there were almost no press conferences. If you remember a couple of years ago, I was able to share with you some pretty amazing press conferences, some interviews with Imagineers who put on a number of presentations and had some really great elaborations on what they were working on. And unfortunately, I did not get the opportunity to do that this time around because it simply was not made available to anybody. They just weren't open for comment because, well, I imagine they didn't have a whole lot else to say, or they probably would have said it in the presentation. So that's kind of where the presentation wrapped up. There were no big announcements at the Walt Disney Parks and Resorts presentation at this D23 Expo. Everybody was rather disappointed. If they had gone into it thinking this is just going to be a presentation kind of giving you an update on what was already going on, then everybody would go into it thinking that way. But they kind of hinted at the fact that perhaps there'd be some surprises, and everybody kind of assumed that there'd be some surprises, and then there weren't. So, everybody was not too thrilled with that. But, they did show off some new updates to projects, which were really nice. To see the Seven Dwarfs coaster updates was excellent, and to hear hints about what's coming in the future was interesting. Whether or not any of that actually ever happens, whether we hear anything about any of it again, well, we're just gonna have to wait and see. Now, of course, time was very valuable at the D23 Expo. There was a lot overlapping. I didn't get to Don Hahn's panel on why we create because I was at the Parks and Resorts presentation, and it was nearly 5 p.m. at this point. Time really flies at the Expo. As you've heard, the only thing I have done at all at this point on day one is the Legend ceremony and then the Parks and Resorts presentation. And since there was nothing specifically scheduled that I was interested in seeing for the next couple of hours following that, at that point it was time to move on a bit and see some areas or whatever I could see, really anything on the floor that I hadn't seen yet. And one of the things that I definitely wanted to see was the Dream Store, because I wanted to be able to grab any merchandise that potentially would sell out before I had a chance to get there. There were 3 major stores there at the Expo, and with it closing at 7 o'clock each night, the show floor, had to make sure to get in there pretty quickly. And I certainly didn't want to miss out on getting a Toronto-Rail, which was going to be available at the Expo first, and then if there were any available available later. They'd be available in the parks out here, but I heard that they had sold out. But I did manage to get a Tronorail, which I am quite excited about. Haven't opened it yet. I might just leave it in the box because it is a very nice box, but it is something wonderful that I high priority to pick it up while I was out at the expo. So I'm glad I got my hands on one of those. So back to the hotel after that, and worked a little bit more on the Legends videos. Got those uploaded. Hooked up the video camera. Started offloading the parks video. And while that was going on, it was time to head back on over once again to the convention center for something that I really, really didn't want to miss. One of the presentations throughout the weekend that I thought was going to be one of the most entertaining, and that was Voices of the Park, something Disney had never done before, and something I really definitely did not want to miss. Now, throughout the expo, as I've said, there were very, very long lines, this presentation included, because there were also some issues with lines and how they worked. This particular presentation was upstairs in the convention center in what they were calling Stage 28. Held about, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people or so, maybe even a little bit less than that. There were certainly many hundreds and hundreds of people lined up outside waiting to get in. And because of the sorcerer passes, the expensive passes, having reserved seats in the front, the lines worked a bit odd. What happened was they would fill in the first couple of rows with whatever sorcerers were there, but if there weren't enough sorcerers to fill those seats right away, they would skip a few rows just in case they would show up at the last minute and start filling in all the standby, everybody who was non-sorcerers behind those rows. And once they filled up that whole section just minutes before the presentation actually began, that is when they would fill in those sort of front rows with everybody else. So people who got there really early and lined up really far ahead of time that weren't sorcerers got to get a decent seat, but the people who got there much later, sometimes last minute, actually got to sit in front of those people who had been waiting a long time, because then they filled in those sorcerer seats instead of having everybody get up and move forward, or better figuring that out. So it was not exactly organized the best way. They didn't have these more expensive tickets back in 2009. I have a feeling they'll work them a bit differently next time. They probably need to have a cutoff point where if the sorcerers aren't there by a certain time, they're going to lose their seat, and that's when they let everybody else in. That probably would have worked a little bit better. Of course, then you would get the guys who show up at the last minute, who paid $1,000 for their ticket, and would complain and complain and complain. I actually saw that happen at one point. A guy was not happy, throwing a fit because he paid $1,000 for his ticket and didn't get a front row seat. So it's one of those kind of you win, you lose situations. But anyway, I did get into the Voices of the Parks presentation, and it was just as hilariously entertaining as you might think it would be. It was hosted by an Imagineer. I don't remember his name right off the top of my head, unfortunately, at the moment. I'm actually showing a picture of him to anybody who's watching the video version of this show. Whoever this guy is, he was a good moderator for the whole thing, because he actually is the Imagineer that works with a lot of this voice talent in getting them ready to lend their voices to the Disney theme parks. And the panel of talent that was there was just phenomenal. For some reason, they put the chairs on the floor instead of on the stage, so we could just barely see them. Just kind of see the tops of their heads. But that aside, the people who were there was a lot of people you've probably never heard of, a lot of people I had never heard their names before, along with some that you have. Corey Burton was there, of course, one of the most famous voice actors on the planet. D. Bradley Baker was there. Bill Rogers, the voice of Disneyland, was there, along with many others. And it was an hour and 20 minutes of just pure entertainment, of listening to these voice actors not only tell their stories of how they got their jobs, how they got started in voice acting, but also do some of their voices and talk about all of the different the different voices that they've done over the years. Voice examples that some of these guys have done are Darth Vader, Sala in the Indiana Jones ride, Rod Serling for Tower of Terror, the Disneyland parking lot tram, California Screamin' announcer guy before Neil Patrick Harris took over, the Old People Mover, the It's a Small World spiel, Autopia, the Great Piggy Bank Adventure, many, many more. There's just an unlimited supply or list of attractions that these guys and girls and women and men have lent their voices to over decades of theme park history, and it was just highly entertaining to hear all of that. And I will be sharing audio of this entire presentation on a future show, and you will love every minute of it. But for now, you can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net or on YouTube to get a 10-minute highlight clip when the Imagineer who was moderating it, he brought with him the scripts that a lot of these, or all of these people had read previously, and he asked them to read their lines there in person in their voices, which was just the most entertaining thing well, I don't know if it topped Princesses singing. I don't know if it topped Kermit the Frog and Rolf singing, but it was pretty darn entertaining. So kudos to Disney for putting this one together. I hope it's something they do again. They did say it was a first-time thing, and they actually opened it up to Q&A at the end, which also produced some pretty funny responses. Anyway, it was a highly entertaining presentation. Back in 2009, I didn't get to go to any of the smaller presentations because I was too busy, and so this time I made it a point that I had to go to at least a few, and this was one of them that I really wanted to, so I was happy to get there. So that wrapped up day one, at least at the expo. It wasn't over yet. Back to the hotel, more video editing, photo posting, article writing, and some dinner as well. We went on over to Tiffy's, I think it was called, next to the Annabella on Catella. It's a little diner and ice cream shop, and it was actually pretty good. It was good prices, good food, and I was just happy to eat anything because up until that point, I had a cupcake and couple of really awful bites of pulled pork from and some potatoes from the Annabella restaurant, which I just that was terrible. So I was happy to be eating. Following that was our meetup, the Inside the Magic and Window to the Magic meetup over at Trader Sam's at the Disneyland Hotel. We hopped a taxi at this point because there was no way we were walking all the way over. And yes, to the person in the chat room, Pam, who was asking, yes, I am indeed wearing right now my Ludwig von Drake t-shirt that I bought at the D23 Expo. So anyway, moving along here, we took a taxi over to Trader Sam's, discovered that a huge portion of the Disneyland Hotel is under construction and actually blocking a lot of paths. I knew that they were working on the pool area, which is kind of the center atrium area of the D23 see, now I'm getting confused, of the Disneyland Hotel, but I didn't realize it was blocking so much space. Anyway, so we had to walk way around and finally got just in time at 10 p.m. over to Trader Sam's and just had a blast. Not only was Paul from Window to the Magic there with his family and Window to the Magic and all of that, but there were just so many of you Inside the Magic listeners out there who showed up to the meet people and coming and going and all night, and we ended up being there for 3 hours till 1 in the morning. Handed out a lot of Inside the Magic lanyards. I'd say it was maybe around 50 people, something like that, came and went throughout the night, maybe more. I don't know. It was a great turnout. So really thanks to everybody, whoever's in the chat room that was there. Pam, who I just mentioned, was there, and many, many others. Thanks to everybody who came out to say hi and just hang out and chat. It was a wonderful night. After we were there to chatting for a couple hours, and it started to wind down. We actually ended up spending the last half an hour or so chatting with some D23 staff who was there, and then Tim O'Day showed up, and a lot of you probably already know who Tim O'Day is. He has a long history with Disney, worked in entertainment and Imagineering and classics collection, and has been on panel discussions as a moderator for a number of years, historian, author, the list goes on and on. Anyway, so we chatted with him for a while, and he actually ended up offering to drive Michelle and I back to our hotel, which was just so nice. I thank him very much for that. It saved us the cab fare and was more comfortable than a cab also. Anyway, so back to the hotel and then sleep. Oh, wait, no, not sleep. Time to work some more. Internet problems, so I relocated over to the hotel lobby where I sat there next to a fireplace until 4:30 in the morning, writing and editing and posting and uploading, etc. Finally got to bed, and 3.5 hours later, time to get up. Wake at 8 a.m. for day 2 of the 2011 D23 Expo. And let's see, an hour and 17 minutes into this podcast, I said this wasn't going to go to 2 hours. Now I'm thinking otherwise. But on we go this time around for day 2 of the D23 Expo. It started off a bit differently because no equipment was on me this time. It was the Walt Disney Studios presentation was coming up that day, and that day or for that presentation, no equipment is allowed inside. No cell phones, no recording equipment, no photos, no video, no nothing. So I just left everything in the hotel. It was easier than checking it all in the security check right there at the expo, and I was happy to be able to just sit back and enjoy what I hoped to be just as an exciting of a presentation as the studio's presentation was back in 2009. There was a huge line for this presentation. It was announced the night before that the D23 Expo day number 2 had sold out. It's the first and only D23 Expo day that has ever sold out. So Disney marketing did a good job getting a hold of this one. Back in 2009, marketing was upset because they didn't have a chance to say, hey, Johnny Depp's going to be here and he's going to be dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. That certainly would have sold out the day, but they couldn't do that because then chairman of the Walt Disney Studios, Dick Cook, wanted everything to be a surprise. Now, this time around, very different story. Marketing put out a lot of information about this presentation in advance, so everybody kind of knew what was going to be there, and everybody was excited about it, and many showed up. And so since I didn't have any technology and I got in, got my seat, I actually took notes on paper, which is something I haven't done in a very, very long time, but that's all I had to work with, and so that is where I'm going to be remembering everything that happened during this studio's presentation for you. Now, I haven't even written this up as an article yet, which I'm going to very soon within the next couple of days, but for right now, let's jump into what this Walt Disney Studios presentation was all about. It all began with Rich Ross, the new Studios chairman, coming out on stage. He acknowledged that he was the new chairman and that he was sitting in the audience back in 2009 when Dick Cook was there and was excited to be the one on stage now presenting. So turning to my paper notes, the presentation actually began before Rich Ross came out. They had a kind of a sizzle reel showing a lot of the projects that we were about to see them talk about at the studio's presentation, variety of films that we were about to see, and the one that got the biggest applause was the Avengers, which of course everybody is very excited about. Then Rich Ross came out and immediately turned the attention away from him onto who would actually take over as the first big presenter of the day, none other than John Lasseter, head of all things animation at Disney. More specifically, in this case, he's there for Pixar, there for Walt Disney Animation Studios, and there for Disney Toon Studios as well. Lasseter received a standing ovation when he came out. Everybody was very excited to see him, and I thought it was interesting that not just Lasseter, but many of Disney's presenters throughout the D23 Expo weekend kept referring it as just D23. Welcome to D23. I'm excited to be here at D23. But I had actually received a press note at one point saying, please refer to it as the D23 Expo, not just D23. Well, apparently the memo didn't get around to Disney's own people, so everybody just calls it D23 anyway. But anyway, first up, John Lasseter was going to be talking Disney Toon Studios, talking about Planes, which is the spinoff from Cars, where a trailer had shown up a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, online, and then was pulled down. Well, that exact trailer that was online was shown there to show off and kind of debut, as they were kind of pretending it was a debut, even though a lot of people had already seen it, what Planes is going to look like with white zombie music blasting, and but they revealed that John Cryer is the voice of the main character of Planes, called Dusty. And John Cryer was then invited to come out on stage, and everybody applauded for him. He was actually a surprise guest. He hadn't been on the list announced in advance. So it was one of those surprises everybody was excited to see. He was kind of giddy, actually, on stage. He was quite excited to be there. We saw the preview, found out that it was coming out in spring of 2013 from Disney Toon Studios. So that was one of those fun moments on stage. Then next up, they moved to another bit of animation. This one's from Walt Disney Animation Studios, and it's a movie called Wreck-It Ralph, which nobody really knew a whole lot about Wreck-It Ralph. I had heard of it, I had seen a little bit of artwork, but I didn't really know, and nobody really knew what this movie was going to be all about, and this was their chance to unveil this movie to everybody. And you know what? Wreck-It Ralph looks fantastic. I cannot wait to see this movie. It's coming out November 2nd of 2012, so a little over a year away. And Wreck-It Ralph is set in the world of 8-bit video games. It's a story of a villain of an 8-bit video game wanting to be more than a villain. And it's going to feature familiar video game characters, some that they showed in this. They actually showed the first 4.5 minutes of this film. It wasn't finished. It was some animation, some storyboard, some kind of, all of that kind of thing. And in this little reel, they showed characters like a Pac-Man Ghost and characters from Halo and Kano from Mortal Kombat. And it was kind of like, you see the video game for a while and the 8-bit nature of it, and then it pulls away and it follows this villain character outside of the game and his journey to become something more than a villain. He attended a Batanon, as they put it, and kind of a support group for villains in a video game. And so they brought out Rich Moore, who was the director, to show a bit more artwork from it, including some sort of games that the villain will travel into, something that looked like Halo, and then something they called Sugar Rush Kart Racing, I guess a Mario Kart kind of thing. The lead character is going to be voiced by John C. Reilly. Jane Lynch from Glee is going to be in there. And then two other actors who are going to have main characters are Jack McBrayer from 30 Rock and Sarah Silverman from wherever Sarah Silverman is from. Anyway, they brought those two out on stage in order to talk to anybody. And Sarah Silverman, always the comedian, joked, "I always wanted to go to Anaheim, but not to Disneyland." But at least she kept it tasteful on stage. She's not necessarily known for doing that. Everybody looked really, actually really excited about Wreck-It Ralph. I think after seeing this presentation, it went from a movie nobody had any excitement of whatsoever because we didn't really know anything to something that sounds really like it's going to be a lot of fun. So I am looking forward to that one for sure. Next up was a trip into Pixar world where it was time to get a glimpse of Brave, Pixar's next big animated feature. It's going to be June 22nd, 2012 is when Brave is coming out, and it is Pixar's really first fairy tale. And they brought out the director, Mark Andrews, and the producer, Catherine Serafium, or something like that. I can't read my notes because they're handwritten, and my handwriting is terrible. But anyway, they showed off a preview of Brave, which is the one that we had seen before, as well as some test footage that was exclusive to D23, some unfinished footage, but it looks really, really good. Some characters that are featured in the film are named King, let's see if I can read my handwriting here, King Fergus, Queen, something that begins with an E, a witch, Merida, who's the main character, Lord Macintosh, young MacGuffin, and some other people. Anyway, you can find out those characters' name online somewhere as well. The actors who are in there are Kelly MacDonald from Boardwalk Empire, and I think the other guy's name was Kevin McKim or something like that, who plays a character who talks in unintelligible Scottish, and they brought them on out to be on the stage, and then showed off an archery scene from the film, which looks really good. Brave looks like it's going to be an excellent film, a completely original film for Pixar, and the next one, and pretty exciting. Good to see. Next up was a really nice surprise for everybody there for the studio's presentation. They talked about Monsters University, the sequel/prequel to Monsters, Inc., and they revealed some details about how that whole world is going to work, in which Mike and Sully are younger and meeting for the first time in Scare College. They showed off artwork of what this college is going to look like, that they toured around the country to a number of colleges to get inspiration about what a college would look like, and on stage, Dan Scanlon, the director, actually joked that they had to go tour colleges because none of them had been there. They all went to art school. So people at Pixar. So they went around just kind of getting an idea of what college life is like, and that is what they're going to inject. They said this is essentially your quintessential college movie, but set in the world of monsters. So you're going to have fraternities and sororities and sports and classes and professors and cliques and jocks and all of that kind of thing, but in the world of monsters, and that's how that's going to work. And then there's going to be the most important area of the campus, where it's kind of the elite scarer part of the university, where only the best of the best get to go and become scarers. And actually, apparently, Mike Wazowski was once wanting to be a scarer, so he was kind of in a rivalry with James P. Sullivan. And then up on the screen, the director Dan Scanlon introduced a video starring John Goodman and Billy Crystal, in which they came on and said, "Hey, everybody." Actually, let me quote. Billy Crystal came on and opened the video by saying, "Hey, nerds." So following that, of course, everybody loved him, and he was talking back and forth with John Goodman about the movie, and he said, "Oh, it's too bad we couldn't be here." And John Goodman said, "Yeah, it's too bad we're not here." And Billy Crystal said, "Wait, I can be there." And then the lights came up, and who came out was none other than Billy Crystal, standing next to James Sullivan on stage, Sully, of course. And so everybody was very excited to see Billy Crystal there. He said a few words, and then walked off the stage. And that was the end of Monsters University. Looks like it's going to be a fun film. So then it moved on, continuing on with Pixar. As I continue on to read my handwritten notes here, it was time for some new announcements, some original new Pixar films that are going to be coming out in the next couple of years. We knew there were a couple of Pixar films slated to come out, some untitled films, but we didn't know exactly what those were going to be. And now we sort of know what they're going to be. They brought out producer John Walker and director Bob Peterson. Bob Peterson was the voice of Mr. Ray in Finding Nemo, Roz in Monsters, Inc., and Doug in Up. And of course, as soon as he came out, he did all three voices, which was hilarious. It was a fun treat to see those three voices. And then the pair of them came out and said their next film after Brave, the next original Pixar movie coming out holiday of 2013, is untitled Pixar movie about dinosaurs. They showed a graphic that said exactly that, and they don't know what the title of this next movie is going to be yet, but it is going to be about dinosaurs somehow. They didn't really say too much more other than the plot of it is going to be what would have happened if the asteroid had missed Earth and dinosaurs lived longer. That's the premise of this film. So there you go. That's for holiday 2013. Moving on from there, the next original Pixar film after that, producer Jonas Rivera came out along with Pete Docter, who, of course, Pixar fans, you'll know that name, and they introduced the next film for summer 2014, which they called Untitled Pixar Movie That Takes You Inside the Mind. Again, they're not sure exactly what that movie is going to be called. They certainly don't have a title for it yet. It's 3 years out, but it is going to be a Pixar film set inside your brain. My thoughts immediately turned to Cranium Command over at Epcot. I'd love to see that attraction come out and return in the Wonders of Life Pavilion, rethemed to work with this new Pixar film. But that's quite a while away, so we'll have to wait and see what this movie is all about. But that was not the end of the Pixar presentation, because it is Pixar's 25th anniversary, and they wanted to celebrate with everybody who was there in the audience, and they did so in a really fun way, because not only did they bring everybody back out on stage who had just presented a film for one big photo op, but they came out and had kind of an Oprah moment and said cupcakes for all. And a bunch of servers came out with these big boxes of cupcakes and brought them to everybody in the entire audience. Thousands and thousands of cupcakes, and the cupcakes were themed like the that famous Pixar ball that you see everywhere. You know, the ball with the little star on it and everything. That's what the cupcakes were designed to look like, and everybody got one. And I ended up eating mine the next day, and it was actually kind of good. It wasn't the greatest cupcake in the world, but it was good. So it was a nice treat for everybody to get a cupcake. Certainly an unexpected treat that everybody got in the audience. And, I don't know if the people on stage actually got cupcakes. They were too busy taking pictures, but they probably got some backstage or whatever. Anyway, moving on from there, Rich Ross came out briefly for a moment before they introduced the next producer, the next presenter, who is the president of production for the Walt Disney Studios live action, moving away from animation, and that is Sean Bailey. So he was the next one to come out. And this is where the presentation got a little less interesting. The first hour or so, that was the animation portion of it, was wonderful. Highly entertaining. Loved everything that they showed. Back in 2009, if you remember, Walt Disney Studios had a presentation that was phenomenal on Saturday. All live action stuff. Then the next day was the animation presentation with John Lasseter. Only John Lasseter. And he was basically saying, I'm going to talk for a while, now I'm going to show you a clip. Now I'm going to talk for a while, now I'm going to show you a Tinkerbell clip. Now here's another Cars clip, and here's another Cars clip, and here's a Tinkerbell clip. That was 2009, and it wasn't necessarily the most entertaining presentation in the world. Now cut to 2011, And animation stole the show here. I thought John Lasseter and the whole team were phenomenal in their presenting abilities, and I loved every minute of it. Next up, following that, was a look at John Carter, which has a Pixar link. It is directed by Andrew Stanton of Pixar fame. And John Carter, when first announced, got kind of lukewarm applause. Everybody in the audience was not terribly, not all that thrilled necessarily with John Carter. First up was Jim Morris, producer of the film, came out, showed some early footage, teaser from the film, and then introduced to come on stage Andrew Stanton, the director, Taylor Kitsch, the star, along with Lynn Collins and Willem Dafoe. And Willem Dafoe had not previously been announced to be there, so that was a nice surprise. The three of them came out and they showed a clip. And they showed another clip. And they showed another clip. And honestly, a little bit of a bore fest here. It started off kind of interesting. They were talking about motion capture and these big 9-foot-tall stilts that Willem Dafoe had to walk on in this motion capture outfit in order to play the alien on planet Mars, and John Carter and this, and I don't know. I mean, John Carter, I guess, apparently, according to Andrew Stanton, has been around for decades and decades, and a lot of people grew up reading these books, and they kind of inspired sci-fi as a genre, but, I don't know. It just doesn't look good to me. It looks bizarre. It doesn't. It's just. I'm not excited, and it went on for a very, very long time there. It really brought the energy level to a screeching halt in this studio's presentation, and so not the most thrilling of things to follow the incredible animation, everything that they had shown right before. So not so great there. Fortunately, the next one was far more interesting to me as a Tim Burton fan, because that was when they were moving into the topic of Frankenweenie, which is coming out October of 2012. It is a stop-motion version of the short film that Tim Burton made years and years ago as a live-action for Disney. It's Tim Burton's kind of return to Disney, producing a film or directing a film for Disney. And to talk more about Frankenweenie, unfortunately, Tim Burton was not able to be there. He's over in London, actually, in the midst of production on this film, which is being shot in black and white and 3D, which they made a point over and over to mention that was really unique. We'll see about that. But they went through, and Don Hahn came out. It was great to see him, along with Allison something. I didn't catch her last name, unfortunately. And they wanted to talk all about it, about the cast, featuring Martin Landau, Winona Ryder, Martin Short, Catherine O'Hara, Danny Elfman's going to be doing the score, and they said the real star of the show is Sparky, which is the little dog that is Frankenweenie. And the plot of Frankenweenie essentially is this dog runs out into the street, gets hit, and the kid, who is inspired by Frankenstein, reanimates his dead dog. And hilarity ensues, I'm sure. So they brought out the star of Frankenweenie, none other than Sparky himself, flown over from London specifically for this event. It was the stop-motion figure of this dog, and the woman, Allison, again, I don't know her last name, was there and started to pose this silicone stop-motion figure and show all the different things that they're able to do with him changing his expression and his ears and his tail and everything, while Don Hahn talked about the film, and all of that was quite entertaining. It was nice to see kind of a live demonstration on the stage about what stop motion of today's world is all about. I'm sure it's very time consuming. I know it's very time consuming, and I love everything Tim Burton does. I love The Corpse Bride and certainly Nightmare Before Christmas, and so I'm looking forward to this film as well. Moving on from there, next topic was The Odd Life of Timothy Green, a film that is coming out that I had not heard anything about, so of course they showed a preview of that film. It's about a couple who wanted a kid. They can't have a kid, so they put all these ideas of a perfect kid into a box, plant it out in the garden, and then a magic rainstorm rolls through, and poof, there's the kid covered in mud. And whatever happens after that. In the film is none other than Jennifer Garner, Sydney Bristow herself, and she was there in person. And then apparently Michelle just told me that she was pregnant at the time. I guess that was just revealed today, but that has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that she was there, very excited about the film, very bubbly, very smiley, and didn't really make me want to see the film anymore, but it was nice to see her there in person. So, next up at this studio's presentation, continuing on, this is probably, about 2 hours into the presentation now, maybe even longer than 2 hours. This next one actually got me really excited, and I didn't think I would be excited about this film. Oz the Great and Powerful. This one's set to come out March of 2013. It is prequel to The Wizard of Oz, written by L. Frank Baum years and years ago, and it's the story of how The Wizard of Oz became The Wizard of Oz. And they showed a first look of really anything that's going on, because it just began principal photography just a couple of weeks ago, so unfortunately they were not able to bring anyone from this film. It's directed by Sam Raimi, stars James Franco and Mila Kunis, and other people that escape me right at the moment, but it's a pretty star-studded cast. I'm sure somebody in the chat room can add a few more people who are going to be in there that I can't remember, but it's now in production, and from what they showed, it actually looks like it's going to be a good film. Zach Braff, as Michelle pointed out, she's in the chat room still. Anyway, it looks good. I unfortunately don't have anything more I can share from it, but it does look like it's going to be a good film. And thank you to CJ Mack in the chat room, who is saying the Allison, that I didn't know her last name. Her name is Allison Abadi, A-B-B-A-T-E. Yeah. So that's good. She's producer of Frankenweenie, and Don Hahn is the executive producer. So good stuff there. Moving on was the second to last item for this studio's presentation, and you know what worked really well toward the end of the Disney Legends ceremony, bringing out the Muppets? Well, you know what? It worked again. Bringing them out once again in a different form in promotion of the upcoming November Muppets movie. Studios brought out Jason Segel along with Kermit the Frog, and Miss Piggy came out riding in a motorcycle in the sidecar along with this biker dude. They put on a pretty funny skit there live on stage, in which Jason Segel and Kermit were going to show a couple of clips from the film, and they were worried that the clips didn't have Miss Piggy in it and that she would be upset, but that she didn't know yet. But then she came out and she found out, and she was certainly upset and stormed off. But the clips that they showed of the Muppets were absolutely hilarious. They showed, I guess the premise of this new Muppets movie is that the Muppets Theater has shut down, and they're looking to put the gang back together. Jason Segel and Amy Adams and this new Walter Muppet, I guess, are fans of the Muppet Show. And their goal is to get the gang back together and reinvigorate clean up the Muppet Theater and make them put on the show again. Time to light the lights once again. And they showed a clip of them going to Kermit's house and trying to enlist him in this effort. And then they showed a clip of them making it to the Muppet Theater and singing a song while they cleaned up the theater. And both were just wonderful. The new Muppet movie looks fantastic. It looks like exactly how the Muppets should be, and I am very, very excited to see it. So, following that, strangely enough, was not time for the finale. You'd think, okay, they brought out the Muppets, now what are they going to bring out? It's going to be something big and huge and amazing, but next they actually turned to Disney Nature for a look at Chimpanzee, which comes out Earth Day of 2012. And Chimpanzee, it's a Disney Nature film. They're always touching, they're always cute, they always have their sad moments, and it looks like another one of those, except this time it's about chimpanzees. So if you like cats, if you like oceans, if you like, I don't remember what else came out from Disney Nature, if there was anything else, but Chimpanzee is next. Finally, it was time for the grand finale, or maybe everybody thought, oh, there might be a surprise after this, but it did end up being the grand finale, unfortunately, but it was what everybody in the audience was really looking forward to. It was time for the Avengers to assemble. Marvel president of production or something like that, Kevin Feige, I can't remember how to pronounce his name, F-E-I-G-E, was there, and he came out clearly wanting to appeal to a Disney audience. I think this whole connection between Marvel and Disney is still very up in the air at this point. A lot of Disney fans are not accepting of the world of Marvel, and so he came out wearing a Star Tours hat and introducing himself to the Disney fan crowd there. He name-dropped Tony Baxter, Richard Sherman, Alan Menken for their work that they had done together at some point. So he was really reaching out to this Disney crowd to get accepted as bringing Marvel to the Disney universe. And then they showed a first ever preview of the Avengers. They premiered it here, and they showed a bit of Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, and let's see, what's the guy's name? I'm sure I have it here somewhere. I don't know. The guy who plays Loki was there as well, and it's quite a few other characters in this Avengers clip that was rather long. It was probably a 3 or 4 minute clip from the Avengers, and at that point, he introduced, here it is, Tom Hiddleston is the guy's name. They introduced him onto the stage along with a number of other people, and I don't know all of their names exactly. I put some question marks next to him. Cody Smulders or something like that. Jeremy Reynolds, possibly. Scarlett Johansson, Chris Hemsworth, who played Thor, Robert Downey Jr. They all came out on stage, and everybody was applauding and very, very excited to see all of them up there on the stage. And Robert Downey Jr. took the microphone, and what did he say to everybody? He said, "You want to see that clip again?" And everybody said, "Yeah, let's see it again." And he said, "Okay." And then he ran off the stage, and they showed the clip again. And that was it. That was the end of the studio's presentation. He literally, Robert Downey Jr., literally ran off the stage. I'm not joking. He put the microphone down and took a beeline off the left side of the stage as soon as he was done talking. Very, very odd. A lot of the others stayed on the stage and watched the clip and then kind of waved to everybody afterwards and then walked off the stage. But they didn't say anything else. And that was it. That concluded. Everybody was hoping for a surprise like he had back in 2009 when Johnny Depp came out at the end as Jack Sparrow. But there was no surprise this time around. That was it. It was the Avengers, and that was the big finale. It was a very entertaining 2.5 hours of the studios, short of John Carter, which was a bit dull. But a little bit anticlimactic for them to only be there for that short amount of time. Now, apparently, they had arrived. This whole group had arrived about 3 hours earlier to do the press line backstage interviews with all the major press that had, the typical Hollywood group that they do the interviews and the photo ops, and Disney released plenty of photos of all of them standing backstage looking happy and all of that. And so then for the duration of the presentation, you can imagine this group of A-list celebrities all sitting around backstage waiting for their cues for 2.5 hours. And at that point, they were pretty much ready to go. So it was very clear. They got on stage and they got the heck out of there. So, oh well, that's how it ended. No surprises, but still pretty fun. So that was the end of the studio's presentation. 2.5 hours of fun, but not necessarily anything surprising. The marketing had pretty much gotten a hold of everything that they wanted to promote ahead of time. It worked. It sold out. Day 2 of the expo, the first day they've ever sold out of the D23 Expo. So clearly, their job was successful. So at that point, it was time to walk across the convention floor. It was a little after 1 p.m., and I had a 1:30 interview scheduled that unfortunately didn't work out in the end. It was supposed to be at the Disney Channel Pavilion. That was my meeting point for the interview. And when I got there, it was swarmed with hundreds of people. The Jake and the Neverland Pirates presentation had just ended, and another Disney Channel presentation was about to start. And I saw Dave Barry, the author, walk by me a couple of times. He was not the person I was interviewing, and I did not find the person who I was going to interview. So that didn't work out, and since that didn't work out, and I didn't have any... I guess that happened a little bit later because I had gone back to the hotel already to pick up the equipment from the after the studio's presentation. But anyway, I came back equipment in hand and discovered quickly that I had left my camera battery, unfortunately, back in the hotel room. But I had a backup camera, so no problem because I was back in time to go back to stage 28 once again upstairs. Was able to fortunately skip another long line with the wonderful press pass in order to bring you a presentation and a lot of information about California Adventure, about Buena Vista Street at Disney California Adventure, which I just said. On this panel were Imagineers Lisa, and I realized now from this presentation that I've been pronouncing her name wrong for at least a year now. It's not Lisa Girolami, it's Lisa Girolami. So she was there, Imagineer Lisa Girolami, along with Ray Spencer and Coulter Wynn. And they were there to talk about Buena Vista Street, which is the recreation of what the entrance area of Disney California Adventure is going to look like. Not the actual entrance itself, but the whole street just past the entrance, the sort of town square-ish sort of thing that they're going to be creating, along with down the whole street, and then sort of the hub-ish area that they're creating as well. And this was their chance to really reveal all of that to everybody, all the Disney fans who were there, and it was a packed house. Clearly, everybody is very excited about Buena Vista Street and interested to see what's coming to this new 20s, 30s, 40s style Disney California adventure. So they talked about how it's going to be, of course, Hollywood-inspired, Los Angeles-inspired, really, not necessarily Hollywood. Similar to what Hollywood Studios looks like, but not quite as fantasized and certainly not quite as Hollywood. They've taken bits and pieces of Hollywood and really put it into bits and pieces of Los Angeles history and really put it into what Buena Vista Street is going to look like. Now, one of the things they unveiled was kind of an overall look at what the shape of Buena Vista Street is going to be. And this was pretty interesting because just in the entrance, if you think about Main Street on Disneyland, you walk through the train station and you get to Town Square and you look straight down Main Street and you see the castle. It's all one big straight line. Well, they decided that they didn't want it to be like that here. They didn't want you to look down and see the big Carthay Circle Theater that they're building as kind of the weenie, as it's called in Disney lingo, for the thing that draws your eye. In this case, they've actually shifted that off to one side with a little bit of a curved street because they want it to feel more natural. They want to immerse you in this sort of Los Angeles of decades ago environment. They don't want this theme park feeling to it. So they actually curved the street at the end to put the Carthay Circle Theater off to the side to make it feel a bit more natural. So I thought that was really interesting. They showed off a nice map, kind of an overview of where the changes have come to the entrance area, highlighting those areas in red, showing that the old postcard mosaics on the sides are disappearing and the old turnstiles are going away, and the Golden Gate Bridge has gone away, and they've got the new Pan-Pacific style entrance area to California Adventure in place now, and those changes. So then they started talking about the inspiration behind all of the decor that's going to go up and down Buena Vista Street. Also showed some elevations of what various buildings on Buena Vista Street are going to look like. They're all very natural, that they're going to look like areas that have come out of that time period of Los Angeles. It's not, theme park-ized, if you will. It's not overcolored. It's really subtle and detailed. They emphasize that it's going to be very, very detailed, but it's going to feel natural throughout the area. It's going to feel like you're in a real place, but a Disney version of a real place. A nice, happy, wonderful, idealized version of a real place. And they showed, what these areas up and down Buena Vista Street are going to look like. And it seems like while some of the areas are going to look similar to what's at Hollywood Studios, for the most part, Buena Vista Street really has its own unique look and feel for what the buildings are going to be like. They've rattled off some of the details that are going to be featured in some of the stores. They didn't really say exactly what the stores are going to be specifically up and down. They mentioned ice cream will be there. There's going to be a bakery there. But then they did mention that they're going to have a tribute to the old concept that never got built for Rock Candy Mountain, an attraction that was never built. They're going to have this moving, I think they said 8-foot tall by 5-foot wide display for Big Rock Candy Mountain inside Trolley Treats. That should be a nice tribute to a concept that never actually made it into the parks. Now, further down the road, there's going to be a fairly elaborate fountain that guests will be able to gather around and enjoy. And they actually pulled back the curtain a bit and took a camera beyond the construction walls to show everybody exactly what that fountain is looking like right now, and how construction is progressing. And then, of course, they turned the camera around and showed what the Carthay Circle Theater is going to look like, which is enormous. I didn't realize it's going to be just as big as it is. It's pretty obvious when you're walking through California Adventure right now where that Carthay Circle Theater is going to be. And it's just right there in the midst of everything. And they revealed a bit more about this Carthay Circle Theater, what it is going to contain, because they showed a sort of fly around of what is going to be inside there. And it's going to show. It's going to contain a restaurant and a lounge. It's going to be 2 levels, and they said it's going to offer a fantastic view of the new parade route through California Adventure, which is not going to be exactly where it was now. I can't remember exactly what they said the new route was going to be, but it's going to travel around sort of this new fountain hub sort of area in a semicircle right past the Carthay Circle Theater and give an excellent view of this new route. So after talking about all that and revealing all of that artwork, and I'm going to post a lot more about this over at InsideTheMagic.net at some point soon. But after all of that, it was time for the big surprise at the end of the whole thing, and that was the unveiling of the new statue, the new Partners style statue that's going to be in Disney California Adventure. And so they showed off some artwork and the actual maquette of this statue of Walt Disney and Mickey as they might have looked when they arrived to Los Angeles back in the 1920s, kind of with a suitcase in hand and fedora on Walt's hat and a coat draped over his arm. And they showed Marty Sklar, who of course knew Walt Disney, looking at the maquette and the sculpt to see if it was good enough, if it really represented what it should look like. And everybody seemed pretty pleased about this about this new partner statue. It's going to be different because this statue is actually going to be located on the ground, whereas of course the partner statue here in Walt Disney World and at Disneyland are up on this pedestal in the middle of all these flowers. And this one's going to be accessible. It's going to be quite close to guests. In fact, they said they wanted to make sure that it really felt like you just kind of walked into California Adventure, walked into Los Angeles and saw Walt and Mickey who arrived with you. So it looks good. I think it looks really nice. So that was the end of that Buena Vista Street presentation. I had actually skipped the 25 years of Pixar assembly of all the top talent in Pixar to go to that, and it was nice to see the unveiling of that statue. I think I may have preferred to go to the other presentation, but that's just what the D23 Expo is all about. You got to pick and choose what you want to go to. When I got out of this presentation, I saw that the line to get into the Legends of Imagineering presentation was enormous. The line had formed actually before this presentation had even begun, so everybody was clearly excited to see the Disney Legends who were going to be there. So I went ahead and skipped that one. I've seen the Legends on stage many, many times over, and I have a feeling it probably would have been the same kind of stories or similar stories that I've heard before, so no need to go in there. Coming up later was a panel about Imagineering creativity that I thought I perhaps would go to. I was considering it, but that was a little while away. So it was time to head over to the Auction Preview Center real quick before they closed up for the D23 auction that night, because I wanted to make sure I got a good up-close view of the hitchhiking ghosts from Walt Disney World's Haunted Mansion that they were auctioning off there. I knew that these were going to go for a very large amount of money, and I would probably never see them again now that there are the interactive ghosts out here in Florida, so I wanted to get a nice, fun, up-close view of these ghosts, and they were certainly there and accessible, and I got a photo with them, and I posted a video as well, just kind of looking at them, and it was just fun to see them in person. You should definitely check out the video. It's fun to just kind of look at what these ghosts that used to be behind the mirrors, riding with you in the Doom buggies, looked like up close and personal. So now I had not explored the floor much at all this whole time at this point. It was a sold out day, as I said on Saturday. It was really crowded. Headed out to the floor for just a little bit of time. I wanted to make sure, wanted to get in whatever I could, whenever I could, and throughout the day, on this most crowded day of the D23 Expo, I spotted a lot of really great people who showed up in costume. There were a lot of excellent costumes that attendees had worn, a lot of Disney characters, and it's wonderful that Disney let people dress up in these elaborate Disney costumes that looked as good, if not better, than some of the costumes that people wear in the parks officially as cast members. So anyway, that was fun to see all of the costumes as I walked around. In addition to that, I went over to the other two stores that I had not been to yet. There was Mickey's of Glendale, which is the Imagineering store. The store at actually Walt Disney Imagineering was there. A rare opportunity for the public to purchase directly from them. So they had a number of a whole lot of artwork and pins and shirts and all of that kind of thing. Definitely a lot of really nice pieces that you could buy, a framed bit of artwork from the new Fantasyland overview artwork. That was nice. They had the only thing that I bought in there were a set of 9 Epcot, the old Epcot attraction symbols for, Living Seas and Horizons and Spaceship Earth and all of that. Little shiny pins that I definitely could not pass up. They had shirts of those, and unfortunately the Horizons one had already sold out in my size. In fact, any regular size. They only had really tiny shirts by the time I got there. I guess everybody's a Horizons fan, so no luck on that one. Anyway, moved on to the Treasure Trove store, which was the store for the Walt Disney Archives, but really didn't have a whole lot to do with that. That store is where I got the shirt that I'm actually wearing right now as I am recording this, which is Ludwig von Drake, and I'm attempting to stand up while holding the microphone here so everybody who's watching can see the shirt. Fun shirt there, and in addition to that was, more pins. Of course, there's always pins everywhere. Some other shirts as well, and not much else. There wasn't a whole lot of exciting things in that store, so I wasn't too thrilled. We bought a couple of things and then headed on out. At that point, we could have hit the floor for a little bit longer, but we were just exhausted at this point. It was time for some dinner. So we jumped on the Anaheim Rapid Transit instead of a cab this time, went over to Tony Roma's on Harbor Boulevard, had an excellent dinner there, hopped the Rapid Transit back over to the hotel where I worked on writing and posting and editing and uploading again for a little while, and then hit the sack a little bit earlier this time around, a little past midnight, to actually get some sleep this time because, I was pretty exhausted by this point in order to move into day 3. But before I went to bed, I did read about the D23 Expo auction that was going on that night. I did not attend, I did not bid, but it was going on that night. I decided not to bid on the Hitchhiking Ghosts because I had heard that a few rather rich people were going to be bidding on the Hitchhiking Ghosts. And because of that, I knew I had no chance of winning. And it actually ended up, after 2.5 hours worth of auction, the Hitchhiking Ghosts were the most expensive, the highest price out of the entire auction. The Hitchhiking Ghost trio went for $38,000. Now, the Hatbox Ghost recreation a couple of years ago went for $12,000 or $13,000. So, yeah, $38,000 this time around. That's a pretty incredible price. Just a few items before that was a Peter Pan ride vehicle. That sold for $30,000, so a very expensive night at the D23 Expo. Apparently, the person who won the Hitchhiking Ghost literally started dancing around the room and was invited to go up to the front and do a victory dance after paying $38,000. So yeah, that's a lot. And I actually learned, I'm not even sure if I should share this, but I learned that one of the Imagineers who worked on the Haunted Mansion project now possesses those ghosts also. Not the same ones. Obviously, they had more than one, more than two. They had quite a few of them. So, the Imagineers get to take home some souvenirs sometimes, and not for $38,000. So, lucky Imagineer and lucky bidder, I guess. I guess $38,000 is lucky if you can afford it. But anyway, moving on to day 3 now. Now, day 3 was a very different day at the D23 Expo. Not terribly excited about any of the presentations for D3, but that's a good thing because I had a chance to explore the floor a whole lot more. So heading on over to the Expo, yet again, a nice long line outside the Anaheim Convention Center. And, once again, fortunately, kind of whipped right past that, headed on inside to the entrance of the D23 Expo. And first stop was actually over to the Dream Store because some new Cheshire Cat merchandise was coming out that morning that Michelle wanted me to pick up. So I did. That got done pretty quickly. It took only about 20 minutes to get through there. And then I had to make a decision on what I was going to do. The Marvel presentation was day 3, first thing in the morning in the arena. Yeah, why not? So I decided to head on into the arena for Marvel to find out, what is Marvel all about? I figure if I'm hosting this show, I'm running a Disney website. Marvel is now part of the Disney universe. I really should know more about Marvel. And this arena presentation that is... it was essentially a history of Marvel, so that was a good thing for me. It was a difficult task for them to fill up the arena. In fact, they didn't fill the arena. All of the previous arena presentations had full, and there were people had been full, and there were people who were turned away. For this one, people didn't seem to care quite as much. Finally, right before the presentation started, the whole ground floor seating areas had filled up, and they started loading people up in the upper floor, but their excitement level was pretty low about Marvel. Now, it all began with applause when Stan Lee, of course, famous Stan Lee from Marvel, creator of Spider-Man and so much more, didn't come out on stage, unfortunately. He came out as a video, but it was a video he specifically recorded for the D23 Expo. He said D23 a number of times in there, and it was actually a funny video. He did a good job with it. And thus began the Cup o' Joe, as it's called. This is something that Joe Quesada, who's the head of Marvel currently, has done a number of times. It's where he likes to relate to his fans and Marvel's fans in order to really just get some one-on-one interaction with people to find out what they're wanting to know about Marvel. And in this case, the Cup o' Joe was all about telling Disney fans what Marvel is all about. He came out wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt and kind of related to the crowd as best as he could about being a Disney fan, and then just jumped right into it, talking about how Marvel has been around since the 1930s, almost as long as Disney has been around, has had many things go on over the years. Obviously, it started out with some early characters, and then it evolved into some more characters and tried to differentiate itself from the way that DC offers their characters, where it's, where the character is the superhero primarily for something like Batman and Superman, and then the secret identity is kind of the aside, whereas in the Marvel universe, the person is first, like Peter Parker, and then Spider-Man is kind of the secret identity. It's sort of the flip-flop way of doing it, and he feels like that's more relatable in the Marvel universe. Went on and on and on about the history of Marvel and this comic and that comic and what happened over time, and talked about all of the different characters that Marvel has, mentioning that there are over 7,000 Marvel characters out there, and that's what Disney was really interested in. And in fact, he mentioned that since Disney purchased Marvel, they've developed over 1,000 new characters. There's now over 8,000 Marvel characters. Do I have any idea what those extra 1,000 characters are? Not a clue. And I'm sure I don't know what most of those Marvel characters are, but apparently they're out there. He moved on to tell about how Marvel is beginning to interconnect, or has always interconnected its storylines. Spider-Man can work with, Thor and Captain America and all of that. They can all share the same universe, as they put it, and they have been doing that in the recent Marvel Studios films. Of course, all, moving together to form the Avengers, the next film that'll be coming out. Mentioned many times that Marvel is the #1 comic book publisher in the world, and certainly related to Disney fans tried to relate to Disney fans by also mentioning that Marvel has had its issues over the years, that it apparently went bankrupt back in the 90s, and compared that to Disney's troubles back in the 80s before Eisner and Frank Wells really brought the company back. And so, tried to really connect it all to Disney. Now, Marvel, didn't really necessarily hit a home run there at the D23 Expo, but I think it reached out pretty well. At the very end of the presentation, Joe Quesada reached out to there were microphones set up, and the crowd could ask questions of him at the end. And there were a lot of comic book type people who had questions about specific comics. But there were some questions that were aimed for Disney. And, of course, the topic on everybody's mind was, are there going to be Marvel characters in Disney parks? And Joe Quesada's answer was not definitive. He said there have been talks. Didn't really elaborate beyond that. Whether or not there would be Marvel in the parks apparently is very much up in the air, but it's not impossible either. One person asked if Marvel will continue to be at Universal out here in Orlando, and he said yes, definitely. The Marvel will continue at Universal, so no question about that. A couple other people asked about the ongoing issues with Boom Studios and Darkwing Duck and the Disney Afternoon comics and the Uncle Scrooge comics, and whether or not those will continue at Marvel once the licenses expire pretty soon at Boom. And he said he was not aware of any of that. He simply did not know. He had not heard anything about those comics continuing at Marvel, but he just didn't know. And a few questions later, it was out of time. and out of Marvel. So I learned about Marvel. I have an appreciation for them as a company and their history. Does it fit into the world of Disney? I'm undecided at this point. We'll just wait and see how that's all integrated. One point that he did make is that when he was talking to Bob Iger about purchasing Marvel, and when the deal was in the works, Iger made it very clear that Disney was not looking to run Marvel. Marvel would exist as its own company. Disney was simply looking to own Marvel. And that's a business decision. Disney's not looking to take over Marvel and turn it into Mickey Mouse Marvel. They're just looking to bring Marvel into the Disney family, as they put it. So, in other words, if Marvel makes money, now Disney makes money. But Marvel's going to keep doing what Marvel does, and it's not necessarily going to influence Disney or vice versa. Whether or not that's all true for the future, we'll just wait and see. So that presentation was done. I was not going to be attending any other presentations that day. The only arena presentation left was for Disney Channel, and I did not want to go to that one. So I was going to skip all the smaller presentations in favor of exploring the show floor, finally, of which I had seen almost none of, and there was so much to walk around. In fact, I took the video camera around the expo show floor and shot one continuous shot around the whole floor. Walking around took 25 minutes, and I have posted that as well. Check our YouTube and over at InsideTheMagic.net if you want to take a walk around with me, seeing everything on the show floor. Nothing terribly in-depth, but just a glimpse at everything that was offered there. You'll also find 256 pictures from around the floor as well. So what was on the show floor? What did I take 256 pictures of? Well, let's go through it a bit as we walk to kind of take a lap around the D23 Expo store. And Kelsey in the chat room is asking what was my favorite thing on the show floor, and I'll definitely mention that as I'm going through it right now. So beginning as soon as you entered kind of in the main entrance for the show floor, just to the left was the big Disney Channel pavilion, and the word pavilion was used pretty loosely here. Pavilion was basically an area of the show floor. That's just what they called it. So in the Disney Channel pavilion was a big stage where a lot of Disney Channel stars and similar stars would show up and sign autographs and meet people and that kind of thing. And just opposite that was the platypus, the Perry the Platypus from Phineas and Ferb. It's the big trailer that was themed as Perry. So that was there for people to go inside and play some Phineas and Ferb video games in there. And that was also at Comic-Con a few weeks ago, so this was not my first time seeing the platypus. Not really excited, never bothered to see Phineas and Ferb, though I have heard good things, so maybe I'll have to check it out. Just to the right of that was kind of the main area of the show floor. It was a big open area, and they did this back in 2009 as well. A lot of seating available there, a cushy carpet under your feet, black carpet as opposed to blue carpet that was around the rest of the expo. There was a welcome center there where you could find out information, purchase some theme park tickets, all that kind of thing. And also in this area were some vehicles for you to get up close with. Mater. From Toy Story, a full-size Mater was there. They also had Lightning McQueen just next to Mater that you could see. Also in this area was a Black Pearl. It was from Pirates of the Caribbean, Black Pearl, the ship. And it wasn't full-size. It was kind of like a scaled-down version of the Black Pearl, and I don't really understand what it was. I probably should have read the little plaque that was in front of it to know exactly where it came from. Maybe it was a scale model used for shooting in the film. I honestly don't know because I didn't read the thing, unfortunately. But it was cool to see. It was huge. It was probably 20 feet long and probably 20, 30 feet high. But anyway, next to that was Walt Disney's limousine that he used years and years ago. Big black old-style limousine. So that was interesting to see. And just next to that was the Dharma van from Lost, which, again, I have no idea what that is. I've never seen Lost. That's not true. I tried to watch Lost once, and it just didn't grab me. But anyway, that was there for Lost fans. Then just behind this whole area was the area for Disney volunteers, and this is the community service area of Disney where everybody could line up, and you had a couple of different activities that you could perform, plant a seed and some other stuff. I didn't actually get around to doing it, but Michelle did, and she walked away with a little bit of swag for that. And so next to that was the Disney Gaming Pavilion, where a bunch of video games were shown off, including the upcoming Disney Universe, which I unfortunately didn't get a chance to play. Michelle, who is still in the chat room, said she planted basil, which sounds nice and tasty to me at the volunteers thing. Anyway, back to the gaming pavilion. Disney Universe was shown off, and people seem to be having fun. It's this strange game where these little people get to dress up as Disney characters and you run around and do crazy stuff. I only watched it for a minute. Unfortunately, I didn't really have enough time to actually wait in line and play the game, but people seem to be having fun with that. There was also Epic Mickey and a Phineas and Ferb game and Disney.com Create and a couple of other things, but the lines weren't too long. I just didn't stop for any of it as I walked around, trying to fit everything in on this final day at the expo. Nearby was the Disney store, and this is like the mall Disney store, the new version, the Imagination stores. They essentially had set one up there on the show floor for you to walk through, and had some D23 Expo exclusives. They had released some new pop vinyl little figures there. In addition to that, they had something new called Wish-A-Littles, which Michelle bought one of those. They're kind of these cutesy little Disney princess sort of dolls. I don't know, they almost look like Matryoshka dolls, but not quite. They all have really big smiles on their faces. Anyway, they had Disney also released at the expo the new designer Disney princess line of dolls that are rather expensive. I think they were $40 each, and there were a number of those, and apparently the limited edition set of all of them had sold out very quickly there, so people are very interested in princess dolls. Then around the corner from the Disney store was the Disney Beauty Lounge, where you could go in and have your nails done or have your makeup done with all these new Disney products based on Pirates of the Caribbean and Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that. And good. CJ Mack mentions in the chat room that Black Pearl miniature that scaled model that I didn't know what it was for, he says, or she says, that it was used for filming many epic special effects scenes in the film. So that is good to know, because I didn't actually read the thing, like I said. So anyway. Moving on from there, as I said, the Beauty Lounge, you could go and get all made up. Next to the Beauty Lounge was Acme Archives with a whole lot of great Disney artwork there for sale, including those great pieces, newer pieces that show the Haunted Mansion stretching portraits, but with Disney characters in it, like Captain Hook and the Queen from Snow White. They're really fun. I didn't buy them, but they're really fun. Around the corner from there was Hallmark, showing off some new Hallmark ornaments for this year, some Disney-related ones. There's a Tron light cycle, and I think was there a 20,000 Leagues Nautilus, or I honestly don't remember exactly what there was. Oh, there was a little Steamboat Willie Pookaloo kind of looking Mickey thing as one of the ornaments this year. Anyway, around the corner from there was Disney Publishing Worldwide with some beanbag chairs and plenty of books that you could read. And no to Zach in the chat room, I did not buy the Tron Light Cycle because it was not. I don't think it was available for purchase yet. I think it's one of the new ones that is coming out at some point this year. And even if it was available, I don't know. I just didn't buy it. Anyway, moving on from there was Disney Healthy Living, where you could spin a wheel and win, I don't know, something. I didn't spin the wheel. There was a long line for the wheel the whole time. So moving on from there as well, around the corner was a large area. It was actually a store, a mini Nordstrom store was set up in the middle of the expo floor, and it was themed to It's a Small World. They had the big It's a Small World clock. The iconic clock was kind of rocking back and forth, just like as it does at the attraction. And it was because Nordstrom is selling an It's a Small World line of apparel. And so what I was really excited about here was not so much the apparel and the artwork and the coloring that you could do there, but rather the displays that they had there, which were some Small World costumes. And they had, under a glass case, one of the geese from It's a Small World, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, character from the It's a Small World attraction. I just like them squawking along, honking along with the song, and having it there in person where I could go up and take a picture with it and see it up close and personal, and that was fun. And hey, Zach, another question in the chat room is asking, is it for sale? And no, unfortunately, the goose was not for sale. I would have been tempted on that one. That would have been a really cool Disney Expo auction item, but it was not for sale, unfortunately. So around the corner from there was the Disney Play Place, where you could kind of dump your kids and let them play. Well, you can't really dump them there, but they were able to play and color and that kind of thing. Nearby there was the Mattel area, where you could buy some D23 exclusive Mattel products, along with some up-and-coming products. One of the exclusives was a Woody's Roundup figure that I was tempted to get, but decided against. Something that I was most definitely not tempted to get was Rockstar Mickey, which is in the same line as Dance Dance Star Mickey, which is something that was way too expensive and kind of frightened me at Toys R Us. So Rockstar Mickey was not something I was interested in whatsoever. Nearby Mattel was Jakks Pacific, and they are the creators of some toys that I don't think are all that good looking. Pirates of the Caribbean On Stranger Tides toys that are in stores now are from Jakks Pacific, and I really don't like those figures. I mean, they're all right for, but they're not as good as past Pirates figures that came out from NECA, I believe, which were much better looking. Moving on from there was an area where you could do a bottle toss to win a Minnie Mouse plush that was exclusive to the expo. And then near that was the celebration party area where they were showing off all these party ideas to have a Disney party at home. Toy Story and princesses and Disney fairies and cars and all of that. And it was in this area that they were handing out those free cupcakes once again. As I said, they were doing that every day. And this time around, I did not get a cupcake. Instead, I just took pictures of people getting cupcakes, and they all looked very excited. It caused quite a commotion every time they handed out the free cupcakes. Just around the corner from the cupcakes was a full-size Lightning McQueen made out of Lego bricks, which was kind of cool. It would have been cool if they had enlisted the help of Expo attendees to build him, but instead he was just sitting there. Then, across from there was a really excellent exhibit, probably the best exhibit out of the entire expo floor, short of the Parks Pavilion, which I'll get to in a bit, was a Pirates of the Caribbean On Stranger Tides prop and costume area, which was just filled with some really stunning items from the film, which, of course, I loved the most recent Pirates film. I liked it a lot better than 2 and 3, so it was great to see what they had on display here. They had, some cannons and boats and that kind of thing, smaller boats, but they also had Blackbeard's costume that Ian McShane wore in the film. They had the glass case where they transported around Serena the mermaid in the movie. I guess I don't have to say in the movie. Obviously, it is in the movie. They had that little miniature black pearl in a bottle. That was certainly an important part of the film. Jack Sparrow's little guns were there, along with one of Jack Sparrow's many costumes. It was cool to see an official Jack Sparrow costume in person, although it would have been better if Johnny Depp was actually there wearing it this time around. But either way. So all of that was, actual items from the movie. A really nice exhibit, and you can see that and everything else that I just talked about in the video tour of the whole floor as well. But that's not the whole floor yet. Across from there was Disney Home Entertainment, set up in a sort of mock home there. Actually, a rather large building with a number of rooms inside, and one of them where they were showing off Lion King in 3D using some active shutter Panasonic glasses. The Panasonic was the official tech sponsor of the D23 Expo, and so they had Panasonic technology wherever they could fit it. And so here they were showing off the new Lion King in 3D, which is going to have a limited release in theaters and then make its way home very soon. And they actually had a screening of it there at the expo, but I did not make it to that because I just had no interest. And so I was able to watch a short clip of it here, and, it looked all right. It was 3D. It was exactly what you think it's going to be in 3D. It was taking 2D animation and making it 3D, which means some things worked and some things didn't, and for the most part, it was totally unnecessary. I just don't think anything should ever be post-production converted into 3D, and this was a case where I agreed. But they were showing off some nifty new lightweight Panasonic active shutter glasses that worked very well. They still darkened the screen, which was really annoying. That's one of the downfalls of 3D, but they at least were comfortable, and so they had that going for them. Over in the there was an animation area before the animation area, there were a couple of sort of photo op areas. The one for Disney Fairies, which coincidentally, as I was walking by the Disney Fairies area, I saw some attendees who were dressed as the Disney Fairies in some really good costumes. So I, of course, had to get a picture of them. They looked good as the Disney Fairies. Nearby there was a little Muppet sort of photo op where you could sit and pose on a bench that said the Muppets with a picture of all the Muppets around you and Jason Segel and Amy Adams as well. So yeah, that was on the floor. Then over to the animation area, they had maquettes from a number of different features, Winnie the Pooh and Prep and Landing. They had a Wreck-It Ralph sort of wall where they showed off the logo for Wreck-It Ralph, which is what I was talking about earlier, the 8-bit game, along with a full-size Wreck-It Ralph stand-up arcade game, like a classic arcade game. Unfortunately, it was not a playable Wreck-It Ralph game. It was just a fake game with a looping video on it. So that was a little bit disappointing. I was hoping it would actually be a real game. That would have been a great, way to promote the film. But anyway. So then from there, I finally had a chance to play, get my hands on Connect Disneyland Adventures. I actually had a scheduled appointment with a Microsoft rep to spend about half an hour with the game and with her and talking all about it. And I'm going to share all of that on a future show, really my sort of preliminary thoughts. But I'll give you real quick. The game looks fantastic. Walking around is visually stunning. They've done an incredible job with the visuals in this game. Playing it, I don't know. The controls were really clunky with no controller. You just had to wave your hands around and all of that. And she seemed really good at it. So maybe there's just a steep learning curve. But I was not good at controlling the guy at all. You have to point where you want to go, and then you go, and it was just really weird. But visually, the game looks awesome. I enjoyed watching her play more than I enjoyed playing myself. But I've got a lot more thoughts and feelings on it that I'll share soon. But people also got to play, without appointments at Microsoft. You could wait in line and play the game, and they seemed to be having fun on playing it. So, yeah. So then I found my way. I kind of noticed off to the side there was a sectioned off press area over by the arena. I was like, it says press can come in here. I'll go in there and see what's inside. And I found my way into, apparently it was the Disney Channel red carpet sort of press photo area. So all of a sudden I was standing in the room with about a bazillion photographers all snapping away at a bunch of Disney Channel stars that I didn't really know who they were. So I picked up my camera and took a lot of pictures as well. I mean, I knew who some of them were. I had actually met a couple of them back at Epcot. Was that earlier this year? I guess that was earlier this year. Caroline Sunshine and Kenton Duty were there. But other than those two, I had no idea who the other ones were, but I took pictures of them anyway. So I guess I'll post those online at some point, and fans of the Disney Channel people will get a kick out of that. I actually got a really good photo of Caroline Sunshine, who was looking right at my camera, which is always nice. So with a million photographers around, it's nice when they're actually looking at your camera. But it was kind of crazy in there. It was a wild room with a ton of people in a very small space, and yeah, it was hot, and I just had to get out of there. It was kind of nuts. So moving on the show floor, I saw that there was a Mickey's Halloween party area set up, which always excites me because it is Halloween. They were promoting the event, and I think they were might have been pre-selling tickets, or at least they were giving out brochures. And yeah, so next to and apparently the two that I just showed a picture of on the video, according to Zach in the chat room, were Zendaya, I guess her name is, and Bella Thorne. So anybody out there who knows who those are, I guess they're from Shake It Up, I believe, because that's the thing they were doing there, was a big Shake It Up thing. Anyway. Throughout the Collectors Forum is where I went next, and this is where all the unofficial Disney booths were. There were a lot of pins everywhere. There was artwork. There was Paige O'Hara was all over that place. She seemed to have an appearance at multiple booths. I spotted her, and many people spotted her in many places. She seems very eager to greet fans, which is wonderful. But yeah, there was a lot of artwork from a lot of different artists. There was the Garner Holt booth, Garner Holt is the company that worked on many Disney attractions, developing some of their animatronics for Little Mermaid and Haunted Mansion Holiday and a bunch of others. So they had a booth there, though the booth itself was not all that interesting. The booths that they had at IAPA in the past have been better. Yeah. Anyway, so there were some artists doing some live artwork there, and finally some more chances for some fun photo ops throughout that area. So that really moves us on to one final area of the show floor, which was one of the more exciting areas. In fact, it was the best area of the whole show floor that I have not talked about yet, and I had mentioned at the very beginning of this whole thing like 2 hours ago, and that is the exhibit for Disney Parks and Resorts. It was called the Carousel of Projects, and it was definitely the highlight of the entire show floor. Somebody earlier in the chat room had asked what my favorite area of the whole show floor was, and easily, it was the Parks and Resorts area there. It was a wonderful mixture of exhibits and Imagineers that you could talk to, and really the same sort of idea that it was in 2009. I loved it then. I loved it this time to see all the models and everything, and see, you know what? Let's talk more about it. So when you walk inside the carousel of projects, the first thing, and yes, of course, I have photos and video of this whole thing that Josh had taken on preview night, and so you can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net to see all of that. Really get a full walkthrough of the entire exhibit. But when you first walked in, you saw this great pre-show video that was themed to Carousel of Progress, but really took you through the whole history of Disney parks, with all these clips coming and going all over the screen, and then it sort of looked like it rotated like the Carousel of Progress, but that's when the doorway opened up and led you inside, and immediately in front of you was this giant Disney cruise ship kind of honking its horn at you, and then you moved past that and entered in, and one of the first things that you saw entering this carousel of projects for the parks and resorts was a huge model of the Fantasyland expansion out here at the Magic Kingdom, and it was wonderful to see this in person, to really get an idea of everything that you will see when they finish all of this out here at the Magic Kingdom. As you looked around it, you saw a lot of familiar sights that are beginning to take shape over there already. The Beast Castle and the whole Beauty and the Beast area were on there, and then looking further off to the side was Storybook Circus, with a really good look at what the double Dumbo carousels are going to look like, along with the future of Great Goofini, formerly the Barnstormer. And I learned a bit about the whole concept of Casey Jr. and how he's sort of rolling into town and bringing the circus with him as part of the theme of Storybook Circus. And then elsewhere in the model, you saw the Seven Dwarves mine coaster with all of the elaborate theming and trees and hills and grass and rocks and all of that. And it's going to look really stunning. In fact, this whole thing is being called Fantasyland Forest because there's going to be a lot of trees throughout the area, which is wonderful. And here I had a chance to have a really long chat with an Imagineer, a really nice guy that was able to tell me a lot about this whole new Fantasyland project, and so I'll be excited to share that with you very, very soon to learn a bit more. What I did learn was kind of a timeline about Fantasyland, which is a question I haven't really been able to answer all that well so far. I can tell you for sure now that Storybook Circus will be opening first, kind of middle-ish of next year, and then later in 2012 is when The Little Mermaid and the Beauty and the Beast areas are going to open, followed by in 2013 the rest, which is the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs coaster and the Princess Meet and Greet. So that is the schedule of Fantasyland. That's pretty much what everybody expected, but that is officially the schedule that they are working toward. In addition to that, next to the model was a great full-size mock-up of the rocking ride vehicles for the Seven Dwarfs coaster, and they had the kind of these cutouts of the dwarves inside there to give a sense of scale, and it was huge. And the Imagineer standing there was able to push the thing back and forth and show the rocking motion that'll be present on this ride vehicle, and it really looks like a lot of fun. I think the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train coaster is going to be a nice addition to Fantasyland. Really give a kind of a kinetic energy to the whole area and bring some screams and some laughs and all of that to the area. That'll just be filled. It should be pretty darn gorgeous when it's done. Nearby were a whole very large exhibit devoted to Cars Land and some stuff that we haven't seen in person before, including a ride vehicle for Mater's Junkyard Jamboree, which is this sort of tow tractor thingy looking thing. And then for Radiator Springs Racers, there was Red the fire truck, who was blinking and moving his eyes, an animated vehicle that you'll see in that attraction, along with an actual ride vehicle for Radiator Springs Racers, this big red test track looking car that also has eyes and a mouth on it, and that's what you'll be sitting in as you drive around the attraction. Also for the Cars Land area, they had this thing you could walk in and look left and right and up and down. It was kind of this not live, but this video panorama, as if you were standing in the middle of Cars Land, to really give you an idea of the scope of what it'll be like once you enter the absolutely huge addition to California Adventure. They also had a small model of the Buena Vista Street, along with a much larger model of Carthay Circle Theater by itself, but that wasn't anything. I mean, it was cool to see, but it wasn't anything terribly new that we hadn't seen before. But what was new was a good look at Shanghai Disneyland. Now, it didn't really reveal anything new, but it showed sort of a storybook castle and a bit of the surrounding area and an idea of what it'll look like. Shanghai is going to be very different than any other Disney park, a Magic Kingdom style park, because of the way the castle is situated, not really in the hub spoke sort of situation. It's more of a garden with a lot of water around it. And I talked to an Imagineer, interviewed an Imagineer there about that, which I'll share soon as well to learn more about Shanghai Disneyland. Nearby, there was also some exhibits for Adventures by Disney and Vacation Club and Alani and all of that weren't terribly interesting. Nothing too much new there. But what was really exciting, and probably the most exciting and interactive part of this whole Disney Parks and Resorts Pavilion, were a couple more items. One is something that is called the Amazing Destiny. This is an animatronic figure that Imagineering is testing, not necessarily going to bring into the parks, but it's something they're testing as a concept, literally doing research there at the expo with the help of park guests, involving, not park guests, but attendees, expo guests, using guest interaction to really get more information and data in order to make the future of the living character initiative get even better and better over time. So it was essentially this little booth that you could walk up to, and there was a very long line for this every single day, and I actually didn't get to experience it myself, but I watched other people do it. And you walk up to this little booth, and the curtains open, and you see this little guy, almost looked like Pepe the King Prawn, but it's a animatronic, and he tells your fortune. But in the process, he actually is live without anybody controlling him, behind the scenes, talking back and forth with you, having a conversation, analyzing your face and how you look, and if you're smiling and if you're standing with people, and everything about you. And it actually has short-term memory and is this new wave of technology that could be used in the future in the parks. And what was really cool is they showed the behind the scenes of how this was working. They showed the camera tracking on a big flat screen that was nearby, where they were tracking your facial movements and faces and capturing images and acknowledging different expressions that you would make. And it's a really amazing technology. And I do have much more to share about this, as well as I interviewed an Imagineer standing there also working on that project. So I'll share much more about this project again on a future show. And then nearby on Saturday and Sunday was one of the coolest parts about this pavilion, and that was the ability to have a conversation with Mickey Mouse. The infamous talking Mickey Mouse was there at the Disney D23 Expo in the Parks and Resorts Pavilion, and that is one of the reasons why I absolutely wanted to make sure that I made it into this area to have my first ever live conversation with Mickey Mouse himself. And you know what? I want to share that conversation with you here, right now, and I'll let you decide how it went the first time that they have really unveiled this talking Mickey to the general public. It is still testing very much, but it's still pretty entertaining. So here we go. Let's hear my conversation with Mickey Mouse at the D23 Expo.
One of the things that we've heard from our guests, and actually...
That's not the right video. Let's try that again.
Hi, Mickey.
Hey, pal.
How you doing? High five.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You enjoying
What have you done today?
Oh, boy, I've seen all kinds of stuff. Saw the Marvel presentation.
Great.
You enjoying the expo?
Oh, yeah, we're having a great time.
Yeah.
Hey, let's take a picture together.
Okay, we can do that.
All right, let's look right over here.
All right.
There you go.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Here's your
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks.
So long.
So there you go. That's the first time I've ever actually talked with the mouse himself. Yeah, a little awkward. It's not the same talking Mickey that you hear and see on stage with Tom Staggs at the presentation. It's not the one that has talked with Bob Iger on stage. This particular talking Mickey seems to have some specific things that he likes to say and has to say, and doesn't really move beyond those particular phrases that he likes to utter, if you know what I mean. Not to spoil any magic or anything like that, but this Mickey is a little hard to communicate with, and definitely is still very much in a testing phase. This is why they brought him out to the D23 Expo, just like the Amazing Destiny. They wanted to show it on a larger a larger scale, or display it, work with it on a larger scale, have a lot of guests roll through and see how they would interact with Mickey Mouse one-on-one in person in order to get that feeling of whether or not it's working out perfectly, and certainly will train Mickey a little bit better in the future as it moves on before bringing him out. And right now he's still saving his voice, as they like to say in the parks. You can't talk with Mickey at the moment. It was for the D23 Expo only right now, but I have a feeling we will see not only talking Mickey Mouse in the parks, but also many other talking characters and many more interactive characters in the future. So that was it for the Parks Pavilion, and that was essentially the last thing I did at the 2011 D23 Expo. You might be thinking, after all this time, what about that Treasures of the Walt Disney Archives exhibit? Yeah, I didn't make it in. On this Sunday, it was supposed to close early at 5 because Disney was going to break everything down at that night. The show floor wasn't, closing until 7, but the archives exhibit was closing at 5. So I figured, okay, I'll get there, ish a couple hours before, and then I'll go in. But right after I left the Parks Pavilion, when I was just about to head up to the archives, they came over the announcement and said, sorry, we've closed off the line for the archives exhibit because the lines are too long and they have to get everybody through by 5 o'clock, etc., etc. So unfortunately, I did not make it in there. However, fortunately, Josh did go through the entire archives exhibit a Thursday night during the media preview while I was still on an airplane. And so I do have a full video walkthrough of the entire Treasures of the Walt Disney Archives exhibit over on InsideTheMagic.net. I do have a complete photo gallery of everything that was in the exhibit, so I saw that at least. Everybody can see everything that was in there. I can't talk about it, though, because I did not see it for myself in person, which is disappointing. It was one of the things I really, really wanted to see, and I kept putting it off, and that's my fault. I should have seen it earlier in the day. I should have seen it on Friday or Saturday, but the schedule was so busy, and it's just bound to happen. You go to the expo with such a busy schedule that you're going to miss something, and for me, the thing that I missed was the treasures. But fortunately, Josh was there for us to capture it, and so at least we have it on camera, and so you can head on over to the website to check that out. So that is pretty much it for the 2011 D23 Expo. I could have stayed there for a little bit longer. It wasn't quite closing up yet, but I did want to get some time in the parks in before leaving. I'd hate to go all the way out to Disneyland, all the way out to Anaheim, and not go to the parks. So we did. We headed over to Disneyland after leaving the expo. There were a few new things that I really wanted to see at the Disneyland Resort since I was last there in June. So after hitting a couple of rides at Disneyland and seeing Mickey's Soundsational Parade again, which is fantastic, I love that parade every time I see it, we turned around and went over to California Adventure, where we spotted the new Disney California Adventure entrance that looks like the Pan Pacific, looks like Disney's Hollywood Studios. So I definitely wanted to see that in person. To see what it was, what it's like, and it looked good. I thought it was interesting to not have the big California letters out there and the ugliness of the former one. I don't know. I guess I'm used to this one, so I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So anyway, we headed in there, and of course I had to go to Electronica, one of my favorite things, and I had to see the new Laserman show, which was fantastic. I think I like the first Laserman show, the original one, better, but this one had all the Daft Punk music from Tron Legacy, so that was cool, and it's still a really, really great show. So I enjoyed that, and then I also wanted to make sure that I ate over at the new restaurants in California Adventure, the Boardwalk Pizza and Pasta, and then also the Paradise Gardens Grill. So we went over there, which is gorgeous at night. It is a huge area, way bigger than I thought it was going to be. Looks amazing at night, and then I wanted to try the food, of course. So we looked in the Paradise Gardens Grill. We looked in the Boardwalk Pizza and Pasta. Michelle ended up getting a salad from Boardwalk Pizza and Pasta, which she did not like. Apparently, you really need to get the pizza or the pasta, not the salad. So that was not the best move, but I went over to the Garden Grill, Paradise Gardens Grill, and I got the steak kebab. And on a listener's suggestion, rather than just getting one sauce for the kebab, I asked for all 4 sauces on the side, and that was an excellent suggestion. It ended up being really good. The 4 sauces, I liked the one that I liked the best is the tandoori yogurt sauce. Then the tzatziki sauce was really good. Then the Moroccan sauce was a little bit less good, and then my least favorite was the chimichurri. It was all right. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it was my least favorite of the four. I would definitely get the tandoori yogurt sauce every time I go there. The steak came on a skewer. It was a kebab with some pita bread that was a little bit hard. I could have wanted some softer pita bread. But then it came with some rice pilaf, which was really good and savory, and then also a cucumber salad that had a nice tang to it. So an excellent meal. I would definitely go back and eat there for sure. And then while we were sitting there, we can kind of see World of Color a little bit off to the side. We walked by it as it was going on, rode the Little Mermaid again, which I still enjoy, and then headed out, hit the World of Disney real quick, and that was it. So just a short trip to the parks, but it was good to I mean, it was good to get some food, get on a couple of rides, and then head on back. And to answer a question in the chat room from Mousecatron, no, I did not get a ride back to the hotel from the Grand Californian this time like I did back in 2009. This time we walked. It wasn't too far, as Michelle just said in the chat room. We were able to walk back from downtown Disney to our hotel on Catella. So that is it. That was the wrap up of my trip. Certainly a very long show here. I said maybe not 2 hours, and now we're getting close to 3 hours. Before wrapping this completely up, I do want to mention something. It's something that I mentioned earlier today on Twitter and Facebook, but I definitely want to say it again here on the podcast. I learned two really important things here on this trip to the D23 Expo. Number one, I really got a sense for how big our reach is here on Inside the Magic. Imagineers are most definitely listening to this show. They have been listening. They appreciate the coverage that we provide for the Walt Disney Company and for everything that they do. They pay attention to the fact that all of you out there are watching this show or listening to this show, and that you're all getting excited as a result of their projects. You know, they work so hard on what they do. There are real people behind everything that Disney does. It's easy to see something in the parks and think, oh, just bash that because it's not as good as it should be or this and that. But, there are real people who are designing this and putting their hard work into it. And when you get to appreciate what they do and they see your appreciation through something like Inside the Magic, they really enjoy it. They get to see it play out online, and just for instance, most recently, one of the biggest things we've covered in recent history was the Haunted Mansion Ghost upgrades over at the Magic Kingdom, and to see the reactions, the excited reactions to something like that after they put a lot of work into developing that technology is something that makes them excited and happy, and it's the reason they do what they do, and so I feel like Inside the Magic is kind of this connection between Imagineers and fans. I'm happy to be able to talk to them and to talk to all of you out there and kind of bridge that gap. I am a fan, of course. I don't work for Disney. I never have worked for Disney. But over the years of doing this, I've also gotten to know plenty of really amazing people that do work for Disney, cast members and Imagineers. I've been doing this for years, and I'm happy to have a part in fueling that excitement for what's in the parks and what's coming and what's new and what's been there and what's to come and just everything. So it's great to have that sort of connection between everything there, and it's just a lot of fun. And so that's the number one thing I learned at the Expo. Number two is that Inside the Magic has a lot of fans. I mean, I knew that. I knew our listener base is large. Thousands of that. I can see the numbers. The numbers don't lie. I can see the download counts and the views on YouTube, and it's thousands and thousands of people. But when I attend something like the D23 Expo, and I can't walk more than a few feet without somebody saying hi, or wanting a picture, or share a story with me, or tell me how long they've been listening, it's wonderful. I mean, I'm no celebrity. I'm just Ricky. But I don't want to be a celebrity. I'm just me. I enjoy meeting anybody who enjoys what I do. Everybody has been super nice that I've met over the last few days, and I met so many people, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who came up to me and said hi, who came to the meet, who stopped me on the show floor or said anything about what I've been doing for so many years, and thanked me for the work that I've done on the show, and just to see how much you enjoy it. It makes me happy. It makes me happy that that you enjoy it, and that makes me want to keep doing it. That makes me want to talk for 2 hours and 46 minutes here on a Tuesday night until 1 in the morning, just because it's just nice. So thank you to those of you who are in the chat room right now, who are watching live, to if you're watching on YouTube later, if you're listening, just thanks. It's just a wonderful thing, and we keep on moving. So that's about it for obviously for the 2011 D23 Expo. And yes, Michelle says you're welcome in the chat room. Of course, thank you to Michelle as well for accompanying me on this trip, for letting me sit here in my office until 1 in the morning, waiting for me in the other room so we can watch some TV, waiting for me to eat dinner, waiting for me this and that and the other thing, and so thank you also, Michelle, for all of that. So anyway, 2013 is going to be the next expo. It's 2 years away. In the meantime, it's going to be another Destination D, I believe, out here in Florida, maybe another one in California, and then many other things that are coming up as well. The expo is every other year. It's not every year, so it's going to be a while before we do this again. So it's been fun summarizing it all, but this is definitely not the end of everything expo. Right now, I've got so much more, many more articles to write, many more videos to post. I've got a lot of them up there already. I think I have somewhere around 2 hours worth of videos on YouTube already, with tens of thousands of views just over the last few days. So definitely head over to our website at InsideTheMagic.net, our YouTube channels at youtube.com/InsideTheMagic. Check out the photo gallery. So we've got, I think, over 600 photos from the D23 Expo, and more articles to come over the next few days and probably the next couple of weeks as well. So check it all out over on the website to get even more fun from the expo. So that is it for now. In the coming weeks, I'll share more, but for the moment, that is it for the 2011 D23 Expo.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And this is where we wrap up show 333. For now, we have actually moved into August 24th. It was beginning on the 23rd for D23, 23rd, all of that kind of thing. Now we're actually on the 24th. But, and speaking of August 24th, it's actually my mom's birthday. So if she happens to hear this or see this or something, happy birthday, Mom. But that aside, this is about the end of the show. Very long show recapping the expo. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Head to the website, as I was just saying, to get even more expo fun. I do, of course, want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. Find out about their services, more about their services, by visiting magicaltravel.com. And don't forget, you can also get a free trial of Audible's audiobook services. Get access to more than 85,000 audiobooks and get a free audiobook as well, just by visiting audibletrial.com/InsideTheMagic. That's the place to get it. And please do visit us over at lanyardlab.com to see all of the different styles and custom lanyard options that we have available. You can request a price quote today to receive a free digital preview of your lanyard design. And once again, visit our website, InsideTheMagic.net, not only for podcasts, but also videos, photos, news, articles, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and hopefully a lot of you were following along on the expo on Twitter and Facebook and on our live blog. We were posting like crazy. Both me and Michelle were posting throughout the whole expo and all the presentations, just hundreds and hundreds of posts and pictures and all of that. So that will continue through many, many events. So definitely follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and welcome to all of our new followers who picked up hundreds and hundreds of new followers over the weekend. So that is fantastic. So once again, thanks to all of you in the chat room for watching, anybody on YouTube watching later, anyone on the website watching, and all of you thousands listening out there that I met or didn't meet over the expo and over the years. Thanks again for enjoying everything that we do. So thanks for listening, and have a magical week. Goodbye.
For you and me, so there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow. Shine